because I don't want to drag NATO in that. But when it comes to the high north and the Arctic, you are totally right. The Chinese are now using these routes. We know that the Russians are rearming. We know we have a lack of icebreakers. So the fact that the outside Russia, there are 7 Arctic countries working together on this under US leadership is very important to make sure that that region, that part of the world stays safe. And we know things are changing there and we have to be there.
Well, we just had an election there the other day. Do you see a referendum, a plebiscite, where the people of Greenland would be in a position to decide if they want to become part of the United States?
Yeah, it was a good election for us, as you know. It was not a referendum. It wouldn't be called that. It was an individual election. But the person that did the best is a very good person, as far as we're concerned. And so we'll be talking about it, and it's very important. Mark mentioned the word icebreaker. So we've ordered, we're in the process of ordering 48 icebreakers. And Canada wants to know if they could use them. I said, well, you know, you got to pay for them. Think of it, Canada. We pay for their military. You know, Canada pays very little for their military because they think we're going to protect them. But even with the icebreakers, so we're going to order 48, and Canada wants to be part of the deal. I say, you got to get your own icebreakers. I mean, if you're a state, you can be part of the deal. But if you're a separate country, you've got to get your own icebreakers. Russia, as you know, has about 40 of them. And we have one big icebreaker. But that whole area is becoming very important. And for a lot of reasons, the routes are, you know, very direct to Asia, to Russia, and you have ships all over the place. And we have to have protection. So we're going to have to make a deal on that. And Denmark is not able to do that. You know, Denmark's very far away and really has nothing to do. What happens? A boat landed there 200 years ago or something, and they say they have rights to it. I don't know if that's true. I don't think it is, actually. But we've been dealing with Denmark. We've been dealing with Greenland, and we have to do it. We really need it for national security. I think that's why NATO might have to get involved in a way, because we really need Greenland for national security. It's very important. You know, we have a couple of bases on Greenland already, and we have quite a few soldiers, and maybe you'll see more and more soldiers go there. I don't know. What do you think about that, Pete? So, don't answer that, Pete. Don't answer that question. But we have bases, and we have quite a few soldiers on Greenland.
Because some questions your commitment to NATO. Will anything change? Your commitment to NATO. Will anything change? Same amount of money?
Well, I think they made a great step by putting Mark in charge. I think, to me, that's a great step, because he and I have seen eye to eye on everything for a long time. We've been doing this a long time now.
9 years now.
And so that's a great step. You have to keep NATO strong. You have to keep it relevant. But the biggest thing we have to worry about right now is what's going on right now. I think the rest is going to take care of itself. I don't see this happening. This was a fluke. This was something that, if we had a competent president, it would not have happened. The man was grossly incompetent. All you have to do is take a look at, he signs by auto pen. Who was signing all this stuff by auto pen? Who would think you signed important documents by auto pen? You know, these are major documents you're signing. You're proud to sign them. You have your signature on something. In 300 years, they say, oh, look. Can you imagine? Everything was signed by auto pen, almost everything. Nobody's ever heard of such a thing. So, should have never happened.
Tomorrow at the Justice Department about law and order. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're going to be with the Justice Department. We have a great Justice Department. Pam Bondi is so fantastic, and Todd Blanche, and Emil, you got to know him a little bit. He was acting for a little while. And some other people are incredible in the Justice Department, and I consider the FBI to be a part of it in a sense, and Cash is going to be fantastic, and all the people. Dan Bongino, I love that. I mean, I love that. I think Dan is great. I think we have unbelievable people, and all I'm going to do is set out my vision. It's going to be their vision, really, but it's my ideas, and basically we don't want to have crime in the streets. We don't want to have people pushed into subways and killed, and then the person that did the pushing ends up in a 15-year trial and gets off scot-free. We want to have justice, and we want to have We want to have safety in our cities as well as our communities. And we'll be talking about immigration. We'll be talking about a lot of things, the complete gamut. So I look forward to that. That'll be tomorrow at the Justice Department.
Mr. President, you're a man of peace. You said it several times and you made it very clear. A man of peace dealing with belligerent people. And I'm thinking, we saw how you handled Zelensky in this very own room. What is your leverage on Putin? Are you thinking sanctions? What if he refuses to?
Well, I do have leverage, but I don't want to talk about leverage now, because right now we're talking to him, and based on the statements he made today, they were pretty positive, I think. So I don't want to talk about that. I hope Russia's going to make the deal too. And I think once that deal happens, you're never going to be in a process. I don't think they're going back to shooting again. I really believe if we had if we get a peace treaty, a ceasefire treaty, I think that leads to peace. That's going to really lead to peace. I don't think anyone wants to go back. They've been doing this for a long time, and it's vicious and violent. And I think if President Putin agrees and does a ceasefire, I think we're going to be in very good shape to get it done. We want to get it over with. That's why it was very important what I instructed everybody, including Steve, what we're looking for, to discuss concepts of land, concepts of power plants, because it's complicated. You know, you have a whole, you're sort of creating the edge of a country. The sad part is that country, if this didn't happen, and it wouldn't have happened, I don't know if they would have to give anything back. I guess Crimea, you know, I said it last time, Crimea was given by Obama. Biden gave him the whole thing, and Bush gave him Georgia. And Trump didn't give him anything. I gave him, you know what I gave him? I gave them javelins. And the javelins were very effective, as you know. I gave them nothing.
2019.
And then also, if you take a look, I was the one that stopped the pipeline going into Europe. It was totally stopped. Nord Stream 2, nobody ever heard of Nord Stream 2 before I came along. But I got along very well with President Putin. I got along with most of them. I get along great with President Xi. I got along great with Kim Jong-un. I got along great with all of them. And we had no wars. We had no problems. We wiped out ISIS in record time. General Raisin Kane, and he wiped him out. And he was going to be our new chief, right? He's going to be the head of Joint Chiefs of Staff. And he's a highly respected man. He's going to be great. Pete's going to be fantastic. I have no doubt about it. We have a great team, really great team. Yeah, please. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, some of our allies have said that they're worried that they could be the next to be attacked by Russia. You've spoken directly with the Russian president.
Yeah.
Do you think those fears are justified?
No, I don't. I think when this gets done, it's done. They're going to all want to go home and rest. I don't see it happening. Nope, I don't see that happening. And we'll make sure it doesn't happen. Not going to happen, but we'll make sure it doesn't happen. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Leaders from Russia and Iran are heading to Beijing tomorrow to discuss nuclear programs. What do you hope to get out of that?
Well, maybe they're going to talk about non-nuclear programs. Maybe they're going to be talking about the de-escalation of nuclear weapons, because, you know, I was talking about that with President Putin very strongly, and we could have done something had that election not been rigged. We would have had something. I think I would have made a deal with Putin on de-escalation, denuclearization, as they say, but we would have de-escalated nuclear weapons, because the power of nuclear weapons is so great and so devastating. And right now, Russia and us have by far the most, but China will catch us within 5 years. China doesn't have, but they're in the process of building, and they build. And within 4 or 5 years, they'll probably have the same.
And by the way, this is a Republican tradition. Ronald Reagan, when he negotiated with Gorbachev in the 1980s about bringing down the number of nuclear weapons, it's what you have been doing your first term, and it is important.
It would be a great achievement if we could bring down the number. We have so many weapons, and the power is so great. And number one, you don't need them to that extent. And then we'd have to get others, because, as you know, in a smaller way. Kim Jong-un has a lot of nuclear weapons, by the way, a lot. And others do also. You have India, you have Pakistan, you have others that have them, and we'd get them involved. But we started off with Russia and us. We have by far the most, and we were going to denuclearize, and that was going to happen. And then we were going to China, and I spoke to China. I spoke to President Xi about it, and he really liked the idea. You know, he'd like not to spend trillions of dollars building weapons that hopefully he's never going to have to use, and because they are very expensive also. So that would have been great. Okay, one or two more.
There's been tension in the.
Thank you. We're looking at an impending government shutdown Friday at midnight.
Yeah.
Democrats for 30 years straight have said if there's a shutdown, bad things happen. Do you anticipate direct negotiations yourself with conference leader of the Democrats, Chuck Schumer?
If they need me, I'm there 100%. It's right now. It's 2 or 3 people. If it shuts down, it's not the Republicans' fault. You know, we passed a bill where we had an incredible Republican vote. We only had 1 negative vote, a grandstander. You know, 1 grandstander. There's always a grandstander in the lot. But it was amazing. People were amazed that the Republicans were able to vote in unison like that, so strongly. If there's a shutdown, even the Democrats admit it'll be their fault. And I'm hearing a lot of Democrats are going to vote for it, and I hope they do. This is an extension. But ultimately, we want to vote for one big, beautiful bill where we put the taxes in, we put everything in. We're going to have big tax cuts. We're going to have tremendous incentives for companies coming into our country and employing lots of people. It'll be, I called it, in a rare moment, one big, beautiful bill. That's what I like, and it seems to be that's where they're heading. And we'll have to take care of something to do with Los Angeles. A place called Los Angeles almost burned to the ground. By the way, I broke into Los Angeles. Can you believe it? I had a break-in. I invaded Los Angeles, and we opened up the water, and the water is now flowing down. They have so much water, they don't know what to do. They were sending it out to the Pacific for environmental reasons. Okay, can you believe it? And in the meantime, they lost 25,000 houses. They lost, and nobody's ever seen anything like it. But we have the water. I'd love to show you a picture. You've seen the picture. The water is flowing through the half pipes. You know, we have the big half pipes that go down. 25 years ago, they used to have plenty of water, but they turned it off for environmental reasons. Well, I turned it on for environmental reasons and also fire reasons. But and I've been asking them to do that during my first term. I said, do it. I didn't think anything could happen like this, but they didn't have enough water. Now the farmers are going to have water for their land, and the water is in there. But I actually had to break in. We broke in to do it because we had people that were afraid to give water. They were, in particular, they were trying to protect a certain little fish. And I said, how do you protect the fish if you don't have water? They didn't have any water, so they're protecting a fish. And that didn't work out too well, by the way. So they have a lot of water going down throughout California, all coming out from the Pacific Northwest, even some from Canada. Thank you, Canada, very much. I appreciate it. Next thing you know, they'll want to turn the water off. They want to charge us for the water. But it comes up from the Pacific Northwest, and it's a beautiful thing to see. I mean, it is brimming with water. Now, if they would have had that done, you wouldn't have had the damage because the fire would have been put out. The fire hydrants would have been loaded. The sprinklers in people's living rooms and bedrooms would have been loaded up with water. They had no water. The government makes them put sprinklers, and they had no water in the sprinklers because they had no water. So the water is flowing, and we're going to have to give a lot of money to Los Angeles to help them. And the Democrats are going to want to do that. So that's the one thing different. And frankly, I think that makes it a lot easier. But one of the big thing is we have the big, beautiful bill. We got to get that done. And that will put our country in a position like it's never been. It's a reduction of taxes. It's tremendous incentives for companies to come from all over the world into our country. It's great environmentally. But it's not this environmental scam that we went through, that we all went through. It provides for everything. It's a big, beautiful bill, and I hope we can get it approved, and that'll be next. But in the meantime, we have the continuing resolution, and the Republicans have approved it, and now the Democrats have to approve it. And I hope they will. And I think a lot of them, I can tell you, they want to. I've spoken to some of them. They really want to. Their leadership may not want them to. And if it closes, it's purely on the Democrats. One more?
On Korea, sir, we've seen tension increasing in the peninsula. You've talked about Kim Jong-un. Do you have any plans of re-establishing the relationship you had during the first mandate?
Well, I would. I had a great relationship with Kim Jong-un, North Korea. If I wasn't elected, if Hillary got in, you would have had a nuclear war with North Korea. He expected it. He expected it. And they said, oh, thousands of people. No, millions of people would have been killed. But I got in. We went to Singapore, we met. We went to Vietnam, we met. We got along really good. We had a very good relationship, and we still do. We still do. You don't have that threat that you had. I mean, look, when I was running the first time, it looked like there was going to be a war with North Korea. You know that better than
Tensions were high.
Yeah. And
everybody
it started off.
was startled that you invited him for talks.
Right.
But you did.
It started off very rough, and he wouldn't meet with Obama, wouldn't take his calls. I said, how many times did you call? They called a lot. He wouldn't take their call. He told me I wouldn't take his call. But with me, it did start off rough, if you remember. Very rough, actually, very nasty.
There was a Singapore.
And yeah, but then, no, before that, then it stopped. The rhetoric was extremely tough. It was.
You had
it was a little
speech
bit
in the UN, I remember.
Yeah, that's right. It was a little bit dangerous. And then we met. They asked for a meeting, and we met. And the meeting caused the Olympics, which was in South Korea, to become a tremendous success. Nobody was buying tickets for the Olympics because they didn't want to be nuked. And I met, and not only did the Olympics become successful, but North Korea participated in the Olympics.
His sister visited.
It was an amazing thing. And that was something that was an achievement of the Trump administration, great achievement. And so I have a great relationship with Kim Jong-un, and we'll see what happens, but certainly he's a nuclear power. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
And that was a live look there at a press briefing with President Donald Trump and Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte. Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. We're starting off now with a live report from NTD White House correspondent Iris Tao. Iris, good to see you. What can you tell us about what we just heard there?
Good afternoon to you, Fiona. So today, President Trump held an Oval Office meeting with NATO chief Mark Rutte. And this meeting comes as the U.S. is trying to broker a deal between Russia and Ukraine for a potential ceasefire, and as Trump's own team, his special envoy, is in Moscow for talks. And meanwhile, Trump today in that meeting reiterated his call for Russia to accept that 30-day ceasefire agreement that Ukraine has already accepted earlier this week, if Russia also says yes. And President Trump also asked that his team has already discussed a lot of details with Ukraine. For example, when it comes to what land Ukraine will and will not be able to keep at the end of the war. He also says that NATO membership for Ukraine is off the table. Meanwhile, he says now that the ball is in Russia's court, and it will be quite disappointing if Russia says no. Watch.
A lot of the details of a final agreement have actually been discussed. Now we're going to see whether or not Russia's there, and if they're not, it'll be a very disappointing moment for the world.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin today responded saying that he agrees to a ceasefire in principle, but he wants the deal to address what he calls the root causes of the war. He also raises questions about, for example, who's going to verify the ceasefire given a very long line of fighting. He also asked that he might want to have a call with Trump, and Trump today says that he is willing to talk with Putin, adding that they have already broken some deadlock in the talks for a ceasefire. Watch.
This thing would have gone on for a long
Breaking
time.
a deadlock. It was crucial.
Yeah, we broke a deadlock. Yeah. We did break a deadlock. I hope it's meaningful.
Yeah.
And also on foreign policy, President Trump today again reiterated that he wants the U.S. to acquire Greenland, saying that it's necessary for national security reasons. The NATO chief sitting right next to Trump says that NATO won't really weigh in, but did acknowledge that China and Russia are using routes around that region, tentatively giving his agreement to the rationale behind Trump's move. Back to you.
Iris, on trade tensions, the president has been ramping up his tariff threats. What's the latest on that?
Sure. So President Trump today again acknowledged that there will be a little bit of disturbance coming from his tariffs, though, saying that they won't be long. He also doubles down again, saying that he will not back off on his ideas of both the new metal tariffs that went into effect earlier this week, as well as this new April 2nd reciprocal tariffs that's coming in a few weeks. Watch.
We've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. Now, I'm not going to bend at all on aluminum or steel or cars. We're not going to bend.
And this morning, President Trump just threatened a 200% tariffs on European alcohol. And that's, of course, to push the EU to rescind its retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods. Fiona.
Iris Howe, thanks for the update. And joining us now to discuss in further depth about the Russia-Ukraine situation is Rebecca Grant, National Security Analyst and Vice President of Lexington Institute. Rebecca, thank you for joining us again. It's always great to have you on. Let's start with what we just heard there from the president and Mark Rutte. I mean, we heard them saying breaking a deadlock. What do you make of that?
I think the breaking the deadlock could be quite significant. Obviously, they're not going to tell us exactly what it is, but looking at the body language, I have two observations. And one is there is a lot going on behind the scenes. We already know that there are multiple contacts between the U.S. and the West and the Russian counterparts, you know, CIA Director Ratcliffe talking to his counterpart, et cetera. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. My second point is I think they may have made a tiny bit of progress. It's intriguing to me that Putin is willing to talk about a ceasefire in principle. That could be a fairly significant step, but stand by for continued Russian attacks on Ukraine, Russian propaganda, and this is not going to be an easy negotiation with Putin.
Now, Russia, let's talk more about that then. President Putin, today he says that, of course, as you mentioned, he supports this ceasefire principle, but that further negotiation is necessary. Here's some quotes from him. He said, a deal must eliminate the root causes of this crisis, and also there are nuances. So to Putin, what are the root causes? What are the nuances?
Well, and this is the problem. He's so crazy. This is the whole reason there's a war in the first place. He maintains the root cause is that Ukraine belongs to Russia and the Ukrainian regime is full of Nazis. And we know this is ridiculous. It's an illegal invasion by Russia. But this is Putin kind of going back to the point he's been making all along about Russian world domination and wanting to dominate Ukraine. It's crazy. The nuances, well, that could just be anything. You know, you do have a very long battlefield front there to defend and monitor. There will have to be peacekeepers of some sort. There are Ukrainian forces inside Russia, still good for them. And then what to do about Crimea. So, you know, there are about a million nuances. We also know Russia ultimately wants some sanctions relief. But let's not forget that making this all so much more difficult is China's continued unwavering support for Putin's illegal and brutal war in Ukraine.
And let's talk more about that, Rebecca, because, you know, there are some strategists and analysts who say Trump is ultimately doing this because he sees China as the main threat and he's trying to pull Russia away from China. Where do you see that going in terms of the ceasefire that we're seeing right now?
Right. I agree. Certainly, President Trump is right. China is a massive threat, whether that's in AI or economics or their military power that they're showing in the Pacific, their naval buildup. You know, we could go on and on. We understand the threat of China. I do think that to rebalance all that would be a lot more likely to happen if there is a ceasefire and then ultimately an end to this war in Ukraine. You know, the most dangerous thing to come out of the Biden years has been this tighter Russia-China alliance. And so it looks to me that Trump is thinking he wants to solve the situation in Ukraine, partly because to stop the violence, although, you know, we know Ukraine is right and Russia's wrong, but also to give a little bit more diplomatic flexibility and maybe chip away at some of that Russia-China alliance. So that certainly, I think, could be one of his motivations.
So we're seeing both Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Putin. They're both saying that this deal should lead to some sort of a long-term peace. Of course, a big point of contention we've been seeing is the issue of land and territory. We're seeing some very rapid developments right now out of Kursk. How is that going to factor into all of these discussions happening behind closed doors?
I think both sides are trying to gain advantage where they can, although Russia has moved a little in Kursk. Ukraine is still there. Ukraine has advanced in other areas. While this process goes on, there must be U.S. and Western aid to Ukraine. I'm glad Trump has turned that back on. They need their F-16s, their Abrams tanks, the HIMARS, all working at full capacity. The last thing we want is a weak Ukraine militarily at this point in time. So we have to stay strong with that. And then, wherever the battle lines end up will have an influence in the discussion. Now, personally, I'd like to see every last Russian out of Ukraine's sovereign territory. But it looks like the way it's going, there's going to need to be some compromise that we're not going to maybe be too happy with. And certainly it's Zelensky who wants a long-term peace. I don't know what Putin wants. He still has a taste for war. He is a potential threat to Europe. That's why we see NATO building up. And it is just hard to say, given the image of the world he has in his mind, what Putin will do next.
Speaking of compromise, what can both sides afford to compromise on, and what kind of compromise would be most beneficial to the U.S. right now?
It's just so hard to know. I think what would work best for the U.S. is to see, the minerals deal going forward, to have a Ukraine that can become economically strong and get back on their feet, and to make sure that we don't see China, who was a big trade partner for Ukraine, swooping in there and picking off some of the good deals. We also want Ukraine to be in a place that NATO can look after its defense, even if Ukraine is not a member. So we want to see very active participation from Britain, France, maybe Poland, some of the other really strong and powerful U.S. allies. We want to have a good, strong line from Helsinki to Istanbul, keeping Russia contained.
And building off of that, Rebecca, Rutte told reporters today during his meeting with Trump that NATO members really do need to produce more weaponry. Neither in the U.S. nor in Europe are there enough weapons being produced. They're lagging behind compared to Russia and China. What future steps can we see NATO take?
Yes, and Rutte's right, and he's been really, really good. I expect to see some spin-up of European defense industry. But one of the best things we could do here in the U.S. is speed deliveries of equipment that's already promised and paid for by NATO allies. We need to do some relief in our long arms transfer policy. We need some relief on ITAR. We need to let countries like Poland, for example, just go ahead and buy the defense equipment that we know that they need. That needs to apply to Ukraine and to other partners as well. So we need to remove the bureaucratic obstacles to allow U.S. arms deliveries. So important for European security, so important to our exports and our economy, and then do what we can to help Europe integrate and become interoperable. NATO's got a great strategic concept going forward. We need to remove all the red tape standing in the way of getting more arms supplies there as the NATO allies agree to spend more.
Rebecca, before we go here, one last question for you. If this deal, after whatever conversation needs to happen, goes through, we get the ceasefire and future peacemaking deals start to be brought up onto the table, where does that leave Russia in the Western theater?
Well, exactly. And, Russia is going to have a long economic recovery ahead. And there comes back the question, how much will they still be dependent on China? By spending all this money on this tragic war, Putin has missed a lot of opportunities. And he'll be looking to get back economically into the new areas like AI and all that. He's really, really so far behind because he's pursued this war. And hopefully it leaves Russia contained, but it will just remain to be seen.
Absolutely. And certainly a lot remains to be seen there. Rebecca Grant, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
When we come back, all eyes now on the release of the final living American hostage inside of Gaza. Edan Alexander is 21 years old and has been held for over 500 days. We'll be speaking with a Trump Advisory Board member and father from Edan's town. Stay with us.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Gone Campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more.
Wow.
All while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air conditioner. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return. Shenyang.
Thanks for staying with us. We now turn to the ongoing hostage negotiations in the Middle East. 21-year-old Edan Alexander is the last remaining American hostage still alive in Gaza. He has been held there for over 500 days now. Joining us in studio to discuss is Jason Meister, a Trump Advisory Board member, as well as Managing Director of Hoteling Risk Advisors, and a father from Tenafly, New Jersey, which is Edan Alexander's hometown. Jason, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I just want to start very near and dear to you, right? This young man, 21 years old, over 500 days in captivity. What has this done to your community?
Look, this is a close-knit community just over the George Washington Bridge in New Jersey, in Bergen County. Very close-knit community, a lot of Israelis. And this is a child. This is the son of Adi and Yael Alexander. He was taken captive at the border in Gaza at 19 years old. He's now 21 years old, over 500 days in captivity in tunnels in Gaza. God knows how he's been treated by Hamas. And this is an American citizen. This is an American citizen born and raised in America. He enrolled after high school, graduating high school, in the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, and was put under hostage through Hamas.
Absolutely devastating. Have you had a chance to talk to his parents?
I have. I've been talking with both his father and his mother for weeks now on a daily basis. Obviously, President Trump has taken this as a top priority of his administration. He has his special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and also the special hostage services, Adam Bowler, who's been actively trying to get Edan home. They've been in active negotiations from Doha to Israel. I think Steve Witkoff is actually in Doha right now trying to negotiate the freedom of Edan.
Now, I know these negotiations are very confidential, but is there any idea you could give us of what the timeline of a potential deal is? Is there anything that we know?
Look, it's on a day-by-day, minute-by-minute basis. These are animals. These are terrorists. This is not a state that we're dealing with. This is a terrorist organization, Hamas. So the ongoing negotiations could change like that. But fortunately, I think that we are days or weeks away. There's been a lot more chatter lately that Hamas is willing to allow us to bring Edan home, and so we have very good, optimistic news.
And Jason, you're part of the Trump Advisory Board. Have you been able to get any sort of a feel of how the president feels about what's going on in the Middle East right now?
Look, the president makes this a top priority. This is an administration that puts America first, which means that we put Americans first. We can't allow Americans to dither in these tunnels in Gaza. This is an American citizen. We are going to bring him home, and we're going to do everything in our power to bring him home. And I think President Trump has made it very clear through his envoy, Steve Witkoff and Bowler, that this is a top priority of the American administration.
Now, you wrote an opinion piece for the Washington Times, and in it, what I find really significant is that you say the issue of bringing this young man home is a unifier for the country.
It is. Look, I've talked across all party lines, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and the bottom line is that this transcends political lines in this country. And every single mother and father in this country understands what it means to have their child taken from them. We all love our children. We want them safe at home. This is a young little boy. He was taken by Hamas. We have no idea how they're treating him. We can only imagine. And so I think this really does cut across every single political line in this country. And I think everyone would unify if they saw Edan come off of Marine One with President Trump by his side and hug his parents after 500 days in a captivity on U.S. soil. And I think we're days or weeks from that.
Now, of course, with this whole conflict starting all the way last year, I believe it was around April when we saw all those protests start to happen all across college campuses and a lot of institutions. Do you think that seeing Edan being brought back home could help to mend those divisions a little bit?
Look, we are a torn country. I mean, right now, as you and I sit here doing this interview, there are protesters in Trump Tower right now that are yelling that they want to free Mahmoud Khalil, the gentleman that was basically in support of the Hamas terrorists that kidnapped Edan. But I do think that the vast majority of the American people stand behind Edan, want Edan to come home to his family, see that imagery of his parents embracing him on U.S. soil. And so I do think that will unify this country.
Now, Jason, a few numbers for you. 24 presumed living hostages in Gaza right now, and an estimate 35 bodies left there. Do you know anything about what the administration's next steps for them is?
Look, I can't really get into the details. It's all very confidential. I have been on conversations with the special envoy to the Middle East as well as Adam Bowler. But I can tell you that it is an absolute top priority of this administration. President Trump has made it so. And I think you're going to see some very big news coming out in hopefully weeks.
Well, before we go here, Jason, what kind of a message does the Trump administration's actions so far send not just to the American people, but to the international stage?
Yeah, look, I think if we take a step back and we kind of compare and contrast this administration to the previous one, and where I believe what went wrong and why Edan was taken captive, is we were coming from a position of weakness. We had a disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, which I believe led to the attack from Putin and Russia on Ukraine, which then led to the attack on October 7th by Hamas, which was Iran's proxy. We are now in a completely different era, I should say. President Trump is coming from a position of strength. You see the messaging coming out from the White House. You see the posts that he's made on Truth Social. You've seen the statements coming out from his special envoy. This is a president that in 4 years, in his first term, we had no foreign conflicts. We didn't have Afghanistan's. We didn't have attacks on Ukraine. We didn't have October 7th. And I think that this is a peace through strength approach, a doctrine that is going to work. We're only 50 days in, and we have already had phase 1 of the hostages released. I think we're on the brink of phase 2. And I think, again, it's all coming from a position of strength as opposed to weakness, because our enemies smell and see weakness, they attack. I think that they recognize that there's a new sheriff in town, and he's coming from a position of strength in President Trump.
Now, I know I said last question, but now really last question. So how
Sure.
do you think people on the global stage, especially those who have perhaps differences in goals from the American administration, how are they feeling and reacting right now?
Look, I think everyone in the world can understand and appreciate parents that want their children to be safe and at home. But I think what really matters to the American people is that we protect our own. That's the difference between this administration and the previous administration. This is an administration that, again, puts America first and the American people first. And so we're not looking at what's best for the world. We're not looking at what's best for the globalists. We're looking at what's best for the American people. And the best thing for the American people is to get all of our Americans out of harm's way and protected at home, safe and sound.
Absolutely, and we're really looking forward to seeing Edan home soon. Jason Meister, thanks for joining us
Thanks
today.
for having me.
All right, coming up next, demonstrators from a Jewish group pour into the lobby of Trump Tower in Manhattan. Protesters denounce the immigration arrest of Columbia University student and pro-Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil. We'll have that and more after this short break.
Supermodel Cindy Crawford doesn't just walk the red carpet, she rocks it. At 58, she steals the show and wows the press. Hollywood Life exclaims, Cindy Crawford has never lost her stunning glow. While Page 6 raves, she's still as gorgeous as ever. What is Cindy's secret? It's meaningful beauty. And now with new advanced formulas, it's better than ever. Watch as the appearance of lines and wrinkles are diminished in just weeks. It's no wonder everyone's talking about meaningful beauty.
My makeup artist said, your skin has been looking great lately. What products are you using? And I said, I'm using Meaningful Beauty. And she said, really? I've tried Meaningful Beauty before. I love those products. And then the other lady down in the trailer said, I use Meaningful Beauty. I love it.
Our new and improved formulas deliver age-defying ingredients even deeper into the skin where wrinkles begin. And this brand new offer is Cindy's most exciting ever. Because when you order, you'll get Cindy's exclusive Super Brightening Duo, a $120 value absolutely free. First, you'll get 60 of our Revive and Brighten eye masks, the celebrity secret that visibly smooths, awakens, and restores the area around your eyes. Next, discover the power of our Vitamin C Biphase Brightening Oil for an immediate boost of glamour and glow.
I'm not ashamed to say I am 53 years old. Thank you, Cindy.
The total effect of this free gift package? A red carpet ready complexion. Get all this, a $300 value for just $49.95. But you must act quickly. Results guaranteed or your money back.
So make the call or go online now and put yourself on the path to the most beautiful skin of your life. Trust me, it's worth it.
This special offer is not available anywhere else, so don't delay. Scan the code, go to meaningfulbeauty.com, or call the number on your screen now.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Thanks for staying with us. Demonstrators from a Jewish group swarmed the lobby of Trump Tower today to denounce the immigration arrest of Columbia University student Mahmoud Khalil. The Jewish Voice for Peace protesters carried banners and wore red shirts reading, quote, Jews say stop arming Israel. And they also chanted, bring Mahmoud home now. Here's more on what they had to say.
The Trump regime and cronies think that by targeting people who protest for Palestinian freedom and by targeting a Palestinian, that they will divide us. We know that nothing could be further than the truth.
I'm just standing up for my rights, and I'm standing up for Mahmoud Khalil, who has been abducted illegally and taken to an undisclosed location. Does that sound like America to you?
After warning the protesters to leave the Fifth Avenue building in New York City, police began making arrests. Khalil is a permanent U.S. resident who is married to an American citizen. He was arrested outside his New York City apartment on Saturday and now faces deportation. President Donald Trump has said Khalil's arrest was the first of many to come. The president vowed on social media to deport students who he said engage in, quote, pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity. Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly hosted Secretary of State Marco Rubio today as the two nations engage in back-and-forth tariff increases. The meeting took place on the sidelines of the G7 meetings in Quebec, Canada. Now, Joly said she will continuously raise the issue of countering U.S. tariffs with all G7 participants. Canada's tariffs on U.S. goods worth $20 billion came into effect today. It's a response to President Trump's steel and aluminum tariffs. Canada is the biggest foreign supplier of steel and aluminum to the U.S. Before the meeting, Rubio said G7 partners should understand that new tariffs are a policy decision by Trump in order to protect American competitiveness. But Rubio said he expects constructive dialogue on a number of topics at the meetings. The Trump administration's tariffs on aluminum and steel have businesses reacting as well. Duties on imports are a burden for some, but a boost for others. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports on a manufacturer in America's heartland who says his business is benefiting from the new trade policies.
Noblesville, Indiana is home to the Luxury Pergola, a family-owned manufacturer of the outdoor structures. President and CEO Scott Elmore says he's very optimistic about the future, but he also remembers the struggle his community experienced when he was a kid.
I grew up in a small manufacturing town in East Central Indiana that was literally hollowed out by globalization. So all the jobs that used to support middle-class families in that town were taken to either Mexico or China.
Elmore says that experience made him want to invest at home.
I did not want to contribute to that anymore. So it was important to us, important to me personally, to create as many jobs as possible here in the States.
Elmore says he obtains his raw materials, particularly aluminum, from American companies. Sourcing domestically exempts him from the potential tariffs that his competitors who source from abroad will face.
In fact, it's helping us because we're made here in the United States. So the only people that hurts are my competitors that are shipping in raw aluminum extrusions from overseas. So now their product is going to cost 25% more than it did before. That means I'm more competitive.
Elmore says Trump's tariffs will protect American industry. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The White House is withdrawing President Trump's nomination of Dave Weldon to be director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Weldon was scheduled to appear before a Senate committee this morning for a confirmation hearing. A source familiar with the matter confirmed to the Epoch Times that he lacked the votes needed for Senate confirmation. Weldon is a Republican former congressman and vaccine critic. While in Congress, he challenged studies demonstrating the safety of childhood vaccines, asserting they were harmful and that they were linked to autism. Luigi Mangioni's attorney in Pennsylvania seeks to dismiss the charges against him in the Commonwealth. Mangioni was arrested at a McDonald's just days after he allegedly shot and killed the CEO of United Healthcare in New York City late last year. Mangioni faces firearm and forgery charges in connection to the 3D printed firearm and false ID that were allegedly in his possession at the time of his arrest. In a court filing yesterday, his attorney says those charges should be dismissed because Mangioni was illegally detained, arrested, and searched at the restaurant. The attorney claims Mangioni was not positively identified as the suspect until after he was arrested. The filing also states the attorney is asking the court to prohibit prosecutors from calling Mangioni's recovered writings a manifesto. He says that description could prejudice a jury should the case end up going to trial. Now, the 26-year-old Mangioni also faces charges here in New York. He has pleaded not guilty to state charges there. He says he has yet to enter a plea tied to federal murder charges that he faces as well. And the search has intensified for the University of Pittsburgh college student who went missing while on vacation in Punta Cana nearly a week ago. Dominican officials said yesterday the investigation into the disappearance of 20-year-old Sudiksha Konaki could extend, quote, beyond a possible accidental event. Konaki vanished from the beach of the Rio Republica Hotel in the early hours of March 6th. She was last seen entering the beach with 5 women and 2 men. Cameras later captured part of the group leaving. Authorities said Konaki appears to have stayed behind with a man in his 20s. Surveillance video showed the man leaving the beach alone hours later. Authorities have interviewed the man, but they say he's not considered a suspect at this time. 2 astronauts stuck in space for 9 months. Now they'll have to wait a little bit longer to get back. NASA's launch, which would have picked up the astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams, was scrubbed yesterday with less than an hour to liftoff. Here are those details.
With just under 45 minutes left in the countdown Wednesday, SpaceX's Crew 10 were told their launch would be scrubbed. The crew is supposed to go up to the International Space Station as part of NASA's Commercial Crew program. The SpaceX vehicle they travel in will then be used to bring Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams back to Earth. But the decision to scrub the launch means yet another delay for the 2 veteran astronauts who've been on the space station for 9 months. The decision came down to a hydraulic issue with one of the clamps holding the Falcon 9 rocket in place on Launch Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Ground crews had been working nearly 3 hours up to that point to try and sort the problem out. NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers, Japanese astronaut Takuya Onishi, and Russian cosmonaut Kirill Peskov then exited the spacecraft. Commander McClain saying to Mission Control, "We'll be ready when the equipment is ready." NASA says the next launch attempt will be Friday at 7:03 p.m. Eastern. A possible Thursday launch was waved off because of forecasted high winds and rain. If all goes as planned, Wilmore and Williams will depart the ISS Wednesday, along with Nick Hague and Russian Alexander Gorbunov. They will splash down off the coast of Florida. Wilmore and Williams traveled to the space station aboard Boeing Starliner last June. The mission was plagued by problems, and the spacecraft returned to Earth without a crew.
They say March comes in like a lion and out like a lamb, and the lion sure is roaring right now. A powerful storm continues to clobber California today. More than 20 million people in the southern part of that state are under flood alerts for the afternoon. The weather system will begin moving into the Rockies tonight, bringing snow to parts of Nevada, Arizona, and Utah. Forecasters think the storm will become even stronger before plowing farther east tomorrow. It could impact the southern plains, the southwest, and Mississippi River Valley. Over to Belgium, arresting several people at Chinese tech giant Huawei's offices there. Authorities say they're suspected of bribing lawmakers in the European Parliament. Belgian federal prosecutors said today that about 100 police officers raided Huawei's offices in Belgium and Portugal. Prosecutors said suspects allegedly tried to influence the European Union's policy in favor of the company's interests. That's by paying EU lawmakers for political statements. Also, prosecutors allege suspects offered lawmakers excessive gifts that includes food and travel expenses or regular invitations to soccer games. The European Parliament said it would help Belgium assist in the investigation. Washington said Huawei is a Trojan horse for Chinese spying, and the EU has urged its member states to remove Huawei from its telecommunications networks, though not all states have complied with this request. A 5,000-year showcase of classical Chinese dance. Shenyun Performing Arts took the stage at the Johnny Mercer Theater in Savannah, Georgia. Theater goers shared their reflections on the show, which NTD helps to sponsor.
On March 11th and 12th, Shenyun Performing Arts took audience members in Savannah, Georgia on a journey through ancient China. Shenyun travels with a live orchestra that combines both classical Chinese instruments and Western instruments. Audience members were deeply impressed by the artistry.
It was perfect. It was gorgeous. There was not a single thing out of place. All of the music was I'm not sure how to really say it, but there's a lot of precision, a lot of song-like characteristics coming out of each instrument.
Being a musician, I love good arrangements. They're very well scored, if that means something to non-musicians. The arrangements are absolutely fantastic, and of course the musicians are top-notch.
I would say it was a beautiful cultural experience with color and dance and acrobatics. It was fabulous.
The ancient Chinese believed their culture and values to be gifts from the divine. Theatergoers recognized the importance of Shenyun's efforts in reviving.
Experience this. You need to take the time to learn about Chinese culture and what that has meant in our world.
Shenyun will perform at the Des Moines Civic Center in Des Moines, Iowa on March 15th. NTD News, Savannah, Georgia.
An early flowering variety of cherry blossoms were in bloom at a Tokyo park today, drawing crowds of delighted spectators. Many locals and tourists alike posed for photographs under the trees covered in pink and white flowers. The cherry blossom season was originally set to kick off next Friday in Tokyo, but warm weather in late March is also expected to accelerate blooming all across Japan. Coming up, demonstrators from a Jewish group pour into the lobby of Trump Tower in Manhattan. Protesters denounced the immigration arrest of Columbia University student and pro-Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil. We'll have more in the next hour. Stay with us.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
At Mathis Home, we understand that your home is a reflection of you. And during our spring style event, we have fresh new looks that are waiting to make your home look and feel great at the lowest prices. And with all the latest styles in bloom, you'll find savings in every department. Whether it's a clean and modern sectional or a rustic and traditional dining table, we have it in stock with fast and free delivery. Come find the look that's right for you at our spring style event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
NTD News, the fastest growing independent news source in America, bringing you breaking news from around the world. Expert analysis, investigative reporting, and original award-winning documentaries. We're known for our uncensored China coverage you won't find anywhere else. We cover the stories that affect you and shape our world without the political noise. We report from the heart with you in mind. Watch us right here on NTD News.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. Russian President Vladimir Putin agrees in principle with a U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire in Ukraine, but the terms here still need to be worked out. Remove it immediately or else. Trump threatens a 200% tariff on all European Union alcohol, and the NATO chief meets with Trump in D.C. today. With trade tensions escalating, Secretary of State Marco Rubio sits down for talks with Canada's foreign minister on the sidelines of larger meetings. Demonstrators from a Jewish group pour into the lobby of Trump Tower in Manhattan. Protesters denounced the immigration arrest of Columbia University student and pro-Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil. A rare tornado touches down in California, toppling trees and leaving many without power. Officials are now assessing the damage and working on recovery efforts. Belgium arresting several people from Chinese tech giant Huawei for their alleged attempt to influence and bribe lawmakers in the EU.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
We start off this hour looking at the war in Ukraine. President Trump saying that his team has broken the deadlock in securing a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. This comes as he's meeting the chief of NATO at the White House as negotiations continue. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao brings us more about today's Oval Office meeting.
So today, President Trump held an Oval Office meeting with NATO Chief Mark Rutte. And this meeting comes as the U.S. is trying to broker a deal between Russia and Ukraine for a potential ceasefire, and as Trump's own team, his special envoy, is in Moscow for talks. And meanwhile, Trump today in that meeting reiterated his call for Russia to accept that 30-day ceasefire agreement that Ukraine has already accepted earlier this week, if Russia also says yes. And President Trump also asked that his team has already discussed a lot of details with Ukraine. For example, when it comes to what land Ukraine will and will not be able to keep at the end of the war. He also says that NATO membership for Ukraine is off the table. Meanwhile, he says now that the ball is in Russia's court, and it will be quite disappointing if Russia says no. Watch.
A lot of the details of a final agreement have actually been discussed. Now we're going to see whether or not Russia's there, and if they're not, it'll be a very disappointing moment for the world.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin today responded saying that he agrees to a ceasefire in principle, but he wants the deal to address what he calls the root causes of the war. He also raises questions about, for example, who's going to verify the ceasefire given a very long line of fighting. He also asked that he might want to have a call with Trump, and Trump today says that he is willing to talk with Putin, adding that they have already broken some deadlock in the talks for a ceasefire.
This thing would have gone on for a long time.
Breaking a deadlock. It was crucial.
Yeah, we broke a deadlock. Yeah. We did break a deadlock. I hope it's meaningful.
Yeah.
And also on foreign policy, President Trump today again reiterated that he wants the U.S. to acquire Greenland, saying that it's necessary for national security reasons. The NATO chief sitting right next to Trump says that NATO won't really weigh in, but did acknowledge that China and Russia are using routes around that region, tentatively giving his agreement to the rationale behind Trump's move. President Trump today again acknowledged that there will be a little bit of disturbance coming from his tariffs, so saying that they won't be long. He also doubles down again, saying that he will not back off on his ideas of both the new metal tariffs that went into effect earlier this week, as well as this new April 2nd reciprocal tariffs that's coming in a few weeks. Watch.
We've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. No, I'm not going to bend at all on aluminum or steel or cars. We're not going to bend.
And this morning, President Trump just threatened a 200% tariffs on European alcohol. And that's, of course, to push the EU to rescind its retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods.
Foreign ministers of the G7 meet in Canada during rising tensions over tariffs or taxes on imported goods. Canada and European governments imposing retaliatory tariffs on the U.S., President Trump threatening to further increase tariffs in return. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
Tariffs, a contentious topic between the U.S. and allied nations, looms over meetings with leaders of the Group of Seven, or G7, in Canada. The foreign ministers from the U.S., Canada, UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan kicked off their first of 2 days meetings on Thursday. Mainly, the leaders are in discussions over a potential ceasefire deal in the Russia-Ukraine war and retaliatory tariffs.
In every single meeting, I will raise the issue of tariffs to coordinate our response with the Europeans and to put pressure on the Americans.
Canada is imposing retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods worth $20 billion starting Thursday. The European Union, which some G7 members are on, said it will take similar actions beginning April. It was in response to President Trump imposing 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports. Trump has threatened to impose 200% tariffs on European wine and alcohol if the EU enacts its retaliatory tariffs. A day before going into the G7 meetings, Rubio defended the tariffs as a national security measure.
It's not just against Canada, it's not just against Mexico, it's not just against G7 countries. He's imposed steel and aluminum tariffs now on virtually the entire world. And the reason why is not to punish those countries, it's because he has outlined the need to develop a domestic capability. If you don't have steel and aluminum, you can't build warships, you can't build airplanes. You're not an industrial economy. There are things we have to be able to protect, and there's a lot of unfair trade practices.
Canada is the biggest foreign supplier of steel and aluminum to the U.S. Meanwhile, President Trump has repeatedly called for Canada to become the 51st state, and Rubio recently reaffirming that.
What he said is it should become the 51st state from an economic standpoint. He says if they became the 51st state, we wouldn't have to worry about the border and fentanyl coming across because now we would be able to manage that. He's made an argument that it's their interest to do so. Obviously, the Canadians don't agree, apparently.
The G7 meeting will conclude on Friday, where leaders will hope to make progress on ending the Russia-Ukraine war and some stability over tariffs. Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Back here in New York City, demonstrators from a Jewish group swarmed the lobby of Trump Tower today to denounce the immigration arrest of Columbia University student Mahmoud Khalil. The Jewish Voice for Peace protesters carried banners and wore red shirts reading, "Jews say stop arming Israel." And they also chanted, "Bring Mahmoud home now." Here's more on what they had to say.
The Trump regime and cronies think that by targeting people who protest for Palestinian freedom and by targeting a Palestinian, that they will divide us. We know that nothing could be further than the truth.
I'm just standing up for my rights, and I'm standing up for Mahmoud Khalil, who has been abducted illegally and taken to an undisclosed location. Does that sound like America to you?
After warning the protesters to leave the Fifth Avenue building, police began making arrests. Khalil is a permanent U.S. resident who is married to an American citizen. He was arrested outside his New York City apartment on Saturday and now faces deportation. President Donald Trump has said Khalil's arrest was the first of many to come. The president vowed on social media to deport students who he said engage in, quote, pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity. And we're now going to bring on a panel today to discuss the Trump administration's effort to deport pro-Hamas and anti-Semitic student protesters. As we just heard there, they've targeted right now Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian Columbia student who's a permanent resident, but a court has intervened now, putting the process on pause. We're bringing on now Bobby Ann Cox, civil rights attorney, legal analyst, and a fellow with the Brownstone Institute, as well as Dante Mills. He's a political strategist and lead attorney and managing partner of Mills Legal LLC. Thank you, both of you, for coming on today. It's always great to see you. I want to start off with this quote from Secretary Rubio, all right? He says, "This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with. No one has a right to a student visa. No one has a right to a green card." Bobby Ann, let's start off with you. What's your take on that?
Well, I do believe his statements are correct. I mean, you don't have a right to be in this country if you weren't born here and if you're not a citizen. So what he's saying there is that it is a privilege to have a student visa. Is it a privilege to have a green card and to be able to live in our country? So, I think the underlying theme that people should understand is having a green card or having a visa, having permission to be in our country doesn't mean that you're allowed to break our laws, and doesn't mean that it gives you a free pass to do things that are illegal. So that's really the underlying theme here. It is indeed a privilege to be here if you're not born here, if you're not a citizen. And if you abuse that privilege, it can be taken away.
Dante,
except for the fact that there were no laws broken here, and he did not do anything illegal. So, and the Justice Department even said that this was not an attempt to have him criminally prosecuted for illegal activity, because no illegal activity exists. If someone, and I agree with the large scale point that if you're not a citizen, you don't have a right to be in this country. But if we allow someone to be in this country, how can we then control what they say and say, if you don't share my views and speak the way I want you to speak, I'm going to take action against you? That's not what our country is based off of. And we don't want to create that as the precedent here, that sure, you can come in, but only if you're saying everything we want you to say, or we then have the right to say, we don't want you here. That's not who we are as a country, and that's not who we want to be. So I just don't want to confuse the issue and make people believe that he did something illegal, because he didn't. He didn't do anything illegal. He came in and spoke his mind, which that's the First Amendment. We have the right to do that.
Bobby, what do you make of that? I mean, there's this idea that, Khalil spoke his mind. I mean, what's the evidence that the government has against Khalil right now?
So I haven't seen the evidence against him, but the reports that I've read and things that have been cited against him is not, traversing the campus. So he was doing things, not just protesting a war that he didn't agree with. That is free speech. But what's the accused here is he did more than that. He wasn't just speaking against a war. He was doing things that are illegal. Taking over a building is not something that's protected by free speech. We see a lot of protests, and not just this specific one, but we see a lot of protests where the protesters, block the roads, they lay down on the roads, or they have such a great number of people that the traffic can't get past. That's not legal. You can't do that. That goes beyond free speech. Right? There is a fine line. We have to weigh and we have to balance the rights of individuals to speak freely, but then the rights of everybody else to be safe in their person and in society.
We also have to understand that a part of protest is disruption. You don't have protest without disruption, right? What are you going to act nicely when clearly your opinion hasn't been heard? That's a part of who we are as this country, and why we are able to shape ourselves and get better, because people have the right to speak up and disrupt. We can't then all of a sudden say any type of disruption is deemed illegal activity. I still have yet to hear anyone on this subject say what he did that was illegal activity. And again, in fact, the Justice Department said they are not targeting him for illegal activity. They're targeting him because he presents a threat to our democracy because of things that he said. That's not where we are as a country. That's not who we want to be. You have the right to protest, and part of protest is disruption. We've done that in every facet with every group that speaks up. If you have people that's joined together and you block the road, does that mean that those people, if they're not citizens, should be deported? That those people should suffer some larger consequence than the law allows? I don't think so. We have to be fair here. We have to be honest with ourselves here. We have a situation where the government is trying to make an example out of somebody. We don't want that to be the norm. And if we don't want it to be the norm, we have to speak up and say it's wrong. Because if we don't, it's going to spread. And before you know it, if I decide I don't agree with something, then they may try to use it against me, curtail my free speech, and put me in jail. If we don't want that to be the case, we have to speak up now and stop this and say people have the right to protest. They have the right to voice their opinion. That's the basis of our First Amendment. It's first for a reason, and that's who we are as a nation.
Now, building off of what the two of you are saying here, of course, everyone has the right to protest and to voice their disagreements with any government. However, we did see damage of private property, especially when students occupied Hamilton Hall in Columbia last year. My question here is, when And where do we draw the line between free speech and something past free speech? Where do we draw the line for revoking someone's green card? Bobby Ann, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, that's my whole point here. We do have free speech in this country, and it is first for a reason. I do agree with you, but it doesn't mean that you can do things that are harmful to other people. You can't harass and intimidate and lock people into buildings or block them from freely walking across their campus or make them feel scared and insecure that they are going to have bodily harm. That crosses the line. That then becomes not free speech. That becomes, and hate speech is protected in this country, but you cross the line and you go from having a dialogue, voicing your opinion, even if it's hateful. You cross the line when you start to do things that injure and harm other people or property, as you said, Fiona. So there is a line. And in this case, you have to look at the facts to see, well, what exactly did Khalil do? Did he cross that line? Taking over a building, destroying property, handing out pro-Hamas and pro-Hezbollah literature. We have a law in this country, a federal law, that says if you align and promote a terrorist organization, you are breaking our law. You are not allowed to do that in this country. And Hezbollah and Hamas have both been identified as terrorist organizations. So once you cross a line, there are penalties. It's not free speech if you're crossing that line.
Dante, where do you stand on this? Where is the line, and did Khalil cross that line?
There's no evidence that Khalil crossed that line. Yes, there were some things that happened at Hamilton Hall. There's no evidence that Khalil was present or participated in that action. And what I have to say is we have to make it clear. If he crossed the line, if he caused somebody to be in harm, if he incited some violence, yes, he crossed the line and there should be a penalty. But since we don't have any evidence presented that he did, he should not be sitting in jail right now. That's very important. We can't just say, oh, large scale, he aligned with this group, so let's take all of his rights away, despite the fact that we don't have direct evidence against him, and we're not even saying that he did something illegal. That's my issue. Yes, if there was proof that he did that, punish him, but we don't have it. So let's not just fall into the rhythm of, oh, he was close enough to it that he should be punished, because then I think we get into trouble that way.
Dante, I think you already touched on this a little, but go a little deeper here. What kind of concrete criteria would someone have to breach in order to have their green card revoked?
Well, as the panelists said, and as the Justice Department said, and you don't have the right to be in this country, right? It's not a right, it's a privilege. So if you do something like inciting a riot, if you do something like moving forward a terrorist organization or promoting that terrorist organization, yes, there's a point, or there comes a point where you say you are making this country less safe, or if you violate a law by causing physical harm to someone else or inciting harm to be done to someone else, I think there should be a penalty. But we don't have that information or that evidence here, so we should not be able to just big picture say he's close enough to it, so let's punish him anyway to prove a point. And I think that's what's happening here. They're trying to prove a point. They're using him as a scapegoat, and that shouldn't be allowed to happen in this country.
Bobby Ann, here's some excerpts from Title 8 of the U.S. Code. It says, any alien who has engaged in criminal activity which endangers public safety is deportable, and that any alien the Secretary of State has reasonable ground to believe would have potential serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States is deportable. Okay, based on this, how strong of a defense does Khalil's team have right now?
Yeah, from the reports that I've read, his defense is not strong. I mean, I have read that, again, he was one of the leaders that took over one of the buildings at Columbia, and that was not a peaceful incident. I mean, damage was done. People that were inside felt threatened. And it wasn't just other students, and it wasn't just Jewish students. It was from what I read, somebody that worked for Columbia. So that crosses a line. That is not legal. Whether you are here on a green card or a U.S. citizen, you can't break the laws. You can't threaten people. You can't intimidate people like that. And there are repercussions. So I have read reports that he was involved with that and that he was one of the lead negotiators when students in his group took over the building and were, negotiating back and forth with the university and police, I believe. So, he isn't innocent in the sense of he did nothing wrong and he was just a member of this organization. The reports I have read say that he was actively involved with things that are against the law. So that's why I'm saying that this is not, they're not trying to make an example of someone just because he was near something. He, from what I'm reading, he was in the thick of it. He was one of the lead negotiators. He was taking part in the activities that cross that line and go from free speech into the realm of not protected, unprotected speech, which incites violence, which results in violence. Even just handing out pamphlets that are pro-Hamas or pro-Hezbollah, that would mean you're breaking the law. That is technically a violation of the federal law that we're talking about here. So we have to just understand that the facts really do matter. And I think in this case, perhaps the facts are a little bit fuzzy because Dante and I are going back and forth on what exactly is the evidence here. But for sure, if you have the privilege of being in this country, a green card or a visa, and you have broken a law, you do face deportation. That is just a fact.
Dante, I'll give you a moment. What do you make of that Title VIII that I just put there?
I just still haven't heard anything that meets that qualification or that qualifies that to be triggered. From what I hear, both in this argument and outside of this, is some people were made to feel uncomfortable. That's not a violation of the law, right? Again, protest is going to make people uncomfortable. There's going to be people who disagree with your view. There's going to be people who agree with your view. There's going to be people who aren't on one side or the other, but because a disturbance is happening, they feel uncomfortable. But that does not mean you're breaking the law. And my concern is we're starting with this target because he's an immigrant and because of his green card status. It could easily be revoked and they can tie it into something else, but that this will spread and hit citizens where you're saying, if you make people uncomfortable, if you're saying things we don't agree with, we're going to find some kind of way to say you're violating some rules or some regulations and put you in jail and lock you up and shut you up. And we have to be very mindful to protect that. That's all I'm saying. If he did something that made someone come into harm's way, punish him. But we have to be very thorough in that investigation process and show exactly what it is so it doesn't spread and start to curtail people's freedom of speech, because that's very important in this country and we have to protect it.
Dante, to build off what you're saying here, we did see Khalil's attorney, Ramzi Qassem. They said that moving Khalil to Louisiana was a further retaliation for filing a habeas corpus petition. How do you read that? Because I think at this point, no matter what's happened already, what's critical is that Khalil is afforded due process rights under the law.
You would hope so, but that's not been the case. So what's been happening is his visitations have been limited. His phone calls with attorneys have been limited. And when in fact he was able to have a phone call, it wasn't a private phone call. It was someone listening in on that phone call, which is not supposed to happen, because you have the ability, or you should have the ability, to have a direct and honest conversation with your.
All right. Seems we've lost Dante for a moment. Hopefully he's able to come back. Bobby Ann, in the meantime, what do you make of what Khalil's attorney had to say?
Yeah, due process is very important. I am, 100% on board with that. We cannot violate the rights that are provided by our Constitution, no matter who we're talking about here, whether it's a citizen or a non-citizen. We really do have to abide by our Constitution and afford due process. So, the move of, the government transporting Khalil from New York to Louisiana, that I don't know if that was a technical, this is where they hold people that are being charged with, XYZ for terrorist, supporting terrorist organizations or what. So I don't know, and I don't think that the DOJ has made that public as to why he was put specifically there. But yes, we do need to afford, it doesn't matter who it is, it doesn't matter what the topic is, due process protections, because once you breach that, it's a very slippery slope, and it becomes easier for the government to always breach that. So we do have to make sure that due process is followed. Absolutely.
Dante, I'll leave the last word up to you.
Yeah, so the signal went out, but it's just important to note that in this case, the judge said that there's been attempts to separate him from his family, from his visitors, and this furthers that. And as my colleague just said, you don't want that to happen because it is a slippery slope, and you can start, it starts to trickle to the American citizens. And you want to make sure that people feel comfortable in our own country and know that we can speak up without being punished, without the right to do anything about it.
Absolutely, and I think this is a very important debate to be having. Bobby Ann Cox, Dante Mills, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, the search has intensified for the University of Pittsburgh college student who went missing while on vacation a week ago. And a rare tornado touches down in California, toppling trees and leaving many without power. Officials are now assessing the damage and working on recovery efforts. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
My mom and dad were traditional Asian parents. Now my father would go to work before I woke up in the morning, and then he would come home too tired to play with me. I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. So I teased him the other day and I said, how come you never say that to me? And he said, you're too old now. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the material things, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious minute or moment.
Say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Welcome back to Newsroom. The search has intensified now for the University of Pittsburgh college student who went missing while on vacation in Punta Cana nearly a week ago. Dominican officials said yesterday the investigation into the disappearance of 20-year-old Sudiksha Konanki could extend, quote, beyond a possible accidental event. Konanki vanished from the beach of the Rio Republica Hotel in the early hours of March 6th. She was last seen entering the beach with 5 women and 2 men. Cameras later captured part of the group leaving. Authorities say Konanki appears to have stayed behind with a man in his 20s. Surveillance video showed the man leaving the beach alone hours later. Authorities have interviewed the man, but they say he is not considered a suspect at this time. The Trump administration's tariffs on aluminum and steel have businesses reacting. Duties on imports are a burden for some, but a boost for others. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on a manufacturer in America's heartland who says that his business is benefiting from these new trade policies.
Noblesville, Indiana is home to the Luxury Pergola, a family-owned manufacturer of the outdoor structures. President and CEO Scott Elmore says he's very optimistic about the future, but he also remembers the struggle his community experienced when he was a kid.
I grew up in a small manufacturing town in east central Indiana that was literally hollowed out by globalization. So all the jobs that used to support middle-class families in that town were taken to either Mexico or China.
Elmore says that experience made him want to invest at home.
I did not want to contribute to that anymore. So it was important to us, important to me personally, to create as many jobs as possible here in the States.
Elmore says he obtains his raw materials, particularly aluminum, from American companies. Sourcing domestically exempts him from the potential tariffs that his competitors who source from abroad will face.
In fact, it's helping us because we're made here in the United States. So the only people that hurts are my competitors that are shipping in raw aluminum extrusions from overseas. So now their product is going to cost 25% more than it did before. That means I'm more competitive.
Elmore says Trump's tariffs will protect American industry. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The National Weather Service has confirmed that a tornado touched down in Southern California early this morning, causing notable damage in the area. NTD's Christina Corona reports from Pico Rivera.
We're here in the city of Pico Rivera, where a confirmed tornado touched down early this morning around 3:15 a.m. Right now, we're on Glen Canyon Drive, where the tornado has hit the hardest. As you can see behind me, crews are already hard at work, clearing down trees and power lines. Now, this comes as a powerful storm is sweeping through Los Angeles.
It sounded just like pretty much like a train was passing by, really loud noises. There was heavy rain as well, so you could hear everything, the intensity of it. I mean, it was really hard to sleep at night, and just waking up with all this around is pretty, concerning.
The National Weather Service confirmed that an EF0 tornado with winds up to 85 miles per hour moved through Pico Rivera and lasted approximately 2 minutes. The tornado uprooted trees and down power lines, causing power outages in the area. It carved a mile-long path of damage, stretching about 80 yards wide at its widest point upon touching down. Tornadoes of this magnitude are rare in Southern California, making this event particularly noteworthy.
I've been living in Pico Rivera for about 25 years, basically my whole life. I've never experienced anything like this, nothing close to this. I mean, I know there was heavy rains like, everywhere else, but nothing like this at all.
Local authorities are working diligently to clear the debris and restore power to affected residents. In Riverside County, heavy rain triggered mudslides in San Jacinto on Thursday morning, covering parts of a roadway and trapping multiple vehicles. Fire officials rescued at least 6 people who were evaluated by paramedics and later released. With up to 4 inches of rain expected overnight, flash flood warnings and evacuation alerts remain in place for areas affected by the recent wildfires. Unfortunately, multiple cars have been smashed due to the downed power lines, but no injuries have been reported. High winds are forecast through the afternoon, and rain is expected in the area tomorrow. Reporting from the city of Pico Rivera, Christina Corona, NTD News.
When we come back, we'll be asking retired Colonel John Mills, a senior fellow with the Center for Security Policy and a foreign policy analyst, for his insights on President Vladimir Putin's response to the proposed 30-day ceasefire in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Belgium arresting several people from Chinese tech giant Huawei due to their alleged attempt to influence and bribe lawmakers in the European Union. That and much more after the break.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough. But Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life. They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible. Thank you for caring.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
Thanks for staying with us. U.S. officials in Moscow today to propose a ceasefire in the Ukraine war, but Russian President Vladimir Putin raises concerns with the possible truce. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the update on Ukraine.
Special envoy to Russia and Ukraine, Steve Witkoff, is in Moscow on Thursday. The U.S. is proposing a 30-day ceasefire in the Ukraine conflict. Kyiv already accepted the proposal earlier this week. On Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin said this about a possible truce.
We agree with the proposals to stop the hostilities, but we proceed from the fact that this ceasefire should be such that it would lead to long-term peace and eliminate the original roots of this crisis.
Putin raised multiple concerns he has with a possible ceasefire. He says Russia is currently advancing on the battlefield, which means a pause at this moment would only help Ukraine to reorganize and deliver more weapons to the front lines. Putin also questions who would enforce the ceasefire, saying the front line is over 1,200 miles long. Also on Thursday, a Kremlin aide raised similar points.
What does a temporary ceasefire give us? It gives us nothing. It only gives the Ukrainians an opportunity to regroup and gain strength.
US officials and President Trump previously said a ceasefire would be the first step to lasting peace. They say it would show the willingness from both sides to stop the fighting. Also that it would give them time to negotiate a permanent end to the conflict. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
And joining us now to discuss the Russia-Ukraine ceasefire proposal is retired Colonel John Mills, a senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy and Foreign Policy Analyst. Colonel, always good to have you on. I want to talk first about President Vladimir Putin's statements, right? He's saying he agrees with this 30-day ceasefire proposal in principle, but then he has like a caveat, which is, quote, to eliminate the original causes of this crisis and lead to long-term peace. I mean, by this, what is Putin referring to? Is he referring to the NATO expansion, blocking Ukraine's entry? I mean, how realistic is his demand here?
Well, thank you, Fiona. Well, ceasefires are always difficult when you have troops in contact, and there are troops in contact. There is fighting and killing going on right now. Even if both sides are properly communicated to cease fire, there's always that with the frontline troops, and I've been there from the first Gulf War, there's always that inclination. If I just had that next house, that next intersection, that next hilltop, I could provide proper security for my front line. So it's really challenging. Now, what does Putin mean? That's a great question. And this goes back to what are the causes of the conflict. Many would say, well, Putin invaded. And yes, Putin did invade. But there are also all kinds of other activities that were going on in Ukraine well before the invasion. We're talking about before the 2014 invasion. The U.S. biolabs, it was on the U.S. Embassy website, biolabs, which derived from the 2005 Nunn-Lugar update. What in the world were these biolabs for? So Russia perceives provocations, and I'm not taking sides in any way, shape, or form. I'm looking at this from an America First perspective, but it's going to be challenging on this ceasefire, and there are causal factors we have to acknowledge, which there was U.S. Activities inside of Ukraine even back during the Bush years.
Right, and speaking of complications to this whole discussion, we are seeing some developments out of the Kursk region as well. Is this a difficulty in terms of any sort of a peace proposal? I mean, how do you deal with this area when we're still seeing it being fought over? You know, Russian troops are currently gaining ground.
Well, that's the Clausewitzian principle of momentum and initiative. And it does seem on the ground that Russia has it, both in the east and then also securing the salient that the Ukrainians were able to inject into the Kursk Oblast inside of Russia. Now, there's a town called Sudza, which I'm a little curious about the line of troops, because Sudza is a Russian town just inside the border. Now, there was claims that Russia had taken Sudza, which, if that's the case, that almost might even be closing or in some kind of Clausewitzian pincer movement, trapping Ukrainian troops inside of Kursk. So when a side has momentum and initiative, they're very likely not to want to agree to a ceasefire. Why? Because things are going their direction.
Now, like Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, Putin is saying that this deal should eventually lead to long-term peace. I'm going to ask you what I asked Rebecca Grant earlier in the show. What will it take for a deal like this to ensure that that goal is achievable? Is it achievable?
Well, we have to be honest about, again, what were the West's activities inside of Ukraine. Ukraine has been ungoverned space for a number of years. There's been Russian organized crime. There's been international organized crime. There's Chinese activity. There's the West and the U.S., CIA and SAS, SBS, MI6 activities. We need to come clean on these activities and just this is just this great game, which refers to the games the Brits played against the Russians for years in their periphery. People are dying. War is going on. We have to get away from this skullduggery of the great game, and we have to come clean. You know, there's things we have to address on the West and the American side and the European side. What was going on inside of Ukraine? Just there was bad Russian activity. We have to be fully transparent and honest if both sides are interested in coming to closure and peace on this.
Well, can all those governments involved in this really come clean?
Well, we're going to have to. If peace is the goal, I mean, my leg has just been chewed off this morning by a influential person in Europe who is they are apoplectic about what's going on. But my response to them, they feel that we've abandoned them and we've flipped sides to the Russians. I said that's not the case at all. What is the case is, do we want peace? And if we want peace, we got to cease all of these intelligence activities that lead to mistrust and all this black operations and nobody knows what's going on. And we have to have accountability. I mean, I'm all for a very aggressive intelligence operation, but there always has to be transparency and accountability. And frankly, we don't know what's been going on. And I thought some of this stuff was just conspiracy theory until I saw the Nunn-Lugar update to 2005, which created all these biolabs. If these are just CIA spy bases, let's just call them CIA spy bases. I mean, we couldn't have picked a worse moniker than biolabs. I mean, that doesn't create much trust when we have this thing, and it was all over. It's in the law update, the legislative update. It was on the U.S. Embassy Kyiv website for a year after the invasion. What in the world is a biolab, and why are we supporting these biolabs, not just in Ukraine, but around the world? Let's just be honest about what these are. If these are CIA spy bases, let's call them that. I mean, the biolab is only even worse and more sinister.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of what might be happening behind closed doors, Putin has suggested that he would maybe speak on a call with President Trump to discuss details of a deal. Now, we also heard the president say that he would love to speak with Putin as well. How much room for negotiation is left here?
I think there's actually a lot. And I think President Trump is an excellent negotiator as opposed to the previous assemblage of personalities who were running the U.S. government for the previous 4 years. President Trump knows, and many of his key people like Lutnick, like Secretary of State Rubio, like Waltz, all these personalities, they know how to negotiate and negotiate effectively. There is room for negotiation. Look, even though Putin has the momentum, his country has been eviscerated and would not exist at this point if it wasn't for Chinese, North Korean, and Iranian assistance. And we see what Trump is really trying to do in many ways is a reverse of the 1972 Nixon trip. What Trump is trying to do is peel Russia off from China, as opposed to Nixon and Kissinger, who were trying to peel the People's Republic off from Russia, or excuse me, the Soviet Union. So there is much room for negotiation. And in the end, although Russia would not exist without Chinese support at this time, there's only one thing China thinks of when they look at Russia long term, and that's lunch. And both countries know it.
Colonel, before we go here, based on everything you just said there, what do you make of Polish President Duda calling for the U.S. to transfer nuclear weapons to Polish territory?
Wow. Okay. Now, traditionally, during the era of the U.S. nuclear umbrella, we did store nuclear weapons. We stored them in Turkey. We stored them in Italy. We stored them in Norway. We stored them in Germany, in the U.K. We had them under U.S. lock and key, but the understanding was they would be turned over if presidential authority was given. That was the U.S. nuclear umbrella. It essentially went away. Now, it's unclear whether we have nuclear weapons back inside Europe. There's been references that perhaps back to Lakenheath, Royal Air Force Station Lakenheath, where we have F-35s, they may have been reintroduced. So what Poland is seeking is really a return to the era of nuclear umbrella. Now, Poland is a country that has been punching well above its weight in defense spend. Most of the European countries have been lazy and underfunding their militaries for decades. So, but Poland has a trustworthy voice in these matters because they've been carrying their fair share of the burden, unlike most of the European countries.
All right, retired Colonel John Mills, always great having you on. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona.
Belgium arresting several people at Chinese tech giant Huawei's offices there. Authorities say they're suspected of bribing lawmakers in the European Parliament. Belgian federal prosecutors said Thursday that about 100 police officers raided Huawei's offices in both Belgium and Portugal. Prosecutors said suspects allegedly tried to influence the European Union's policy in favor of the company's interest. That's by paying EU lawmakers for political statements. Also, prosecutors allege suspects offered lawmakers excessive gifts, including food and travel expenses or regular invitations to soccer games. The European Parliament said it would help Belgium assist the investigation. Washington said Huawei is a Trojan horse for Chinese spying and that the EU has urged its member states to remove Huawei from its telecommunications networks, although not all states have complied with this request. Coming up next, Democratic lawmakers weigh options to oppose the changes happening in the Department of Education. Stay with us.
Food. It fuels our bodies, nourishes our spirits, and brings us together. Because we all need nutritious food to thrive.
Food gives me energy and it also helps me focus.
But not everyone knows where their next meal is coming from. And 1 in 7 people in America face hunger. It's tougher than ever for too many of us. But the simple truth is, ending hunger is possible, and it starts with you. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, to help families in your community facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. Your monthly gift delivers food where it's needed most, puts fresh food on the table, and helps kids have healthy meals all year round, even when school is out.
You can see the difference with the kids when they're full. Food is everything.
Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Give $19 a month. Your first gift can double an impact. And we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag as a reminder of how you're helping to end hunger for good.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Food donations help me tremendously, and I'm very grateful for the food bank.
I have hope. The simple truth is, ending hunger in America is possible. You can help make it happen. The need is urgent. Call or go online now to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. We'd never make a separate dinner. And never do that. We'd never let them sleep in our room. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
Okay, well, I'm not at my desk right now. As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
A coalition of Democratic-led states is challenging the Trump administration's sweeping layoffs across the education department. Plaintiffs, including 20 states and Washington, D.C., allege the firings amount to an unconstitutional dismantling of an agency created by Congress. Now, according to a federal lawsuit filed in Massachusetts today, they allege the department, quote, can no longer function and cannot comply with its statutory requirements. The suit alleges the cuts will result in a loss or delay of federal money for public schools and will leave the agency unable to administer college financial aid or enforce civil rights laws at schools, among other disruptions. Trump has repeatedly said he wants the department shut down, arguing that the agency is wasteful. The federal workforce changes enacted by the Trump administration have been one of the main issues discussed at the House Democrats' annual policy retreat. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more on this.
Just look at the split screen. People can't afford their rent. They can't afford eggs. And what is Trump doing? He is slashing the Department of Education in half, going after 180,000 teachers whose jobs depend on federal funding.
House Democrats are gathered here in Leesburg, Virginia for the second day of their annual policy retreat. And the government cuts at the Department of Education is one of the main topics of conversations. Democrats do not oppose government reform, but disagree with how President Trump is enacting change.
Well, I believe in government reform, and I believe there are a lot of places where we can find inefficiency and we can make government work better for people, and I've pushed for years on that front. But to take a sledgehammer is going to do damage that can't be repaired.
For Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar, whose mom was a teacher, the Education Department is a personal issue.
First of all, it is especially helpful when it comes to student loans. And number two, people in rural areas really depend on the Department of Education for help. And then number three, kids with disabilities. Wait till those parents and those families find out about these cuts.
House Democrats are urging Senate Democrats to reject the House Republican stopgap bill to fund government. If Senate Democrats reject the bill, the government will shut down Friday at midnight.
What we do have is the power to stop a bad bill that will strip programs away from Americans.
During the policy retreat, House Democrats have promised to stand by federal workers who have lost their jobs.
Amid this chaos, Democrats have a clear message. We're fighting for and with working people.
You're going to see that unity in the weeks and the months ahead as we expose and talk about what the House Republican budget does. Our job over the next 21 months is to make sure that voters are hearing this message loud and clear, and we're going to keep repeating it over and over.
It remains to be seen what other actions House Democrats take as they oppose the Trump administration's changes to the federal workforce. Reporting from Leesburg, Virginia, Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Coming up next, the bird flu wiping out over 150 million birds in the U.S., most of them egg-laying chickens. And egg prices now astronomical. Is there any price relief in sight, or is there even a solution overall? We'll be investigating in the next hour. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, Mike Huckabee here. Having spent many years in politics, I can comfortably say that the current climate is enough to keep any of us awake at night. And I safeguard my well-being by making sure that I get a good night's rest with Relaxium Sleep, America's #1 trusted sleep aid.
I'm Dr. Eric Siliberti, founder of Relaxium, America's most trusted sleep aid.
Just like you're seeing me on television now, I saw a commercial for Relaxium Sleep back then. I called, and the rest is history.
When I take Relaxium Sleep, I sleep better than I have in years.
I wake up feeling like I've had the best night's sleep.
As a clinical neurologist, I know how essential sleep is for building and nourishing both your mental and physical health.
Relaxium Sleep is made in the USA, has no risk of dependency, and is drug-free. It's also the only sleep aid with Valarest as part of its triple action formula.
I developed Relaxium to help my patients fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up refreshed.
Relaxium Sleep worked from the very first night I took it.
You've got to try Relaxium Sleep for yourself, because once you do, you'll be a customer for life, just like me. And right now, you can try it for free.
For nearly 2 decades now, Relaxium Sleep has been changing millions of lives.
Take Relaxium Sleep. I promise you it'll work.
If you're experiencing sleepless nights or tossing and turning, you need to try Relaxium Sleep now.
I trust Relaxium Sleep, and so should you. Get the best night of sleep guaranteed. Don't wait another minute. Call now.
Mike Huckabee is so confident that Relaxium Sleep will work for you, he's asked us to give away another 1,000 bottles. Get your free bottle of Relaxium Sleep now.
Visit tryrelaxium.com or call 800-418-1606. That's tryrelaxium.com or call 800-418-1606.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Our stories today: demonstrators from a Jewish group pour into the lobby of Trump Tower in Manhattan. Protesters denounced the immigration arrest of Columbia University student and pro-Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil. NBC Universal will not be passing the Olympic torch. The broadcaster has signed a new media deal with the International Olympic Committee through 2036. An FTC case against Amazon should be moving forward now that a FTC attorney has reversed a delay request over a lack of resources. More countries banning TikTok. Users in Albania are experiencing difficulties accessing the popular short video app after a 1-year ban by the government took effect. The bird flu wiping out over 150 million birds in the U.S., mostly egg-laying chickens. Egg prices astronomical. Is there any price relief in sight or a solution overall? We investigate.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. President Trump says his team has broken the deadlock in securing a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. It comes as he's meeting the chief of NATO at the White House as negotiations continue. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao brings us more about today's Oval Office meeting.
So today, President Trump held an Oval Office meeting with NATO Chief Mark Rutte. And this meeting comes as the U.S. is trying to broker a deal between Russia and Ukraine for a potential ceasefire, and as Trump's own team, his special envoy, is in Moscow for talks. And meanwhile, Trump today in that meeting reiterated his call for Russia to accept that 30-day ceasefire agreement that Ukraine has already accepted earlier this week, if Russia also says yes. And President Trump also asked that his team has already discussed a lot of details with Ukraine. For example, when it comes to what land Ukraine will and will not be able to keep at the end of the war. He also says that NATO membership for Ukraine is off the table. Meanwhile, he says now that the ball is in Russia's court and it will be quite disappointing if Russia says no. Watch.
A lot of the details of a final agreement have actually been discussed. Now we're going to see whether or not Russia's there, and if they're not, it'll be a very disappointing moment for the world.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin today responded saying that he agrees to a ceasefire in principle, but he wants the deal to address what he calls the root causes of the war. He also raises questions about, for example, who's going to verify the ceasefire given a very long line of fighting. He also asked that he might want to have a call with Trump, and Trump today says that he is willing to talk with Putin, adding that they have already broken some deadlock in the talks for a ceasefire.
This thing would have gone on for a long time.
Breaking a deadlock. It was crucial.
Yeah, we broke a deadlock. Yeah. We did break a deadlock. I hope it's meaningful.
Yeah.
And also on foreign policy, President Trump today again reiterated that he wants the U.S. to acquire Greenland, saying that it's necessary for national security reasons. The NATO chief sitting right next to Trump says that NATO won't really weigh in, but did acknowledge that China and Russia are using routes around that region, tentatively giving his agreement to the rationale behind Trump's move. President Trump today again acknowledged that there will be a little bit of disturbance coming from his tariffs, though saying that they won't be long. He also doubles down again, saying that he will not back off on his ideas of both the new metal tariffs that went into effect earlier this week, as well as this new April 2nd reciprocal tariffs that's coming in a few weeks. Watch.
We've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. Now, I'm not going to bend at all on aluminum or steel or cars. We're not going to bend.
And this morning, President Trump just threatened a 200% tariffs on European alcohol. And that's, of course, to push the EU to rescind its retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods.
Thanks, Iris. Next, foreign ministers of the G7 meet in Canada during rising tensions over tariffs or taxes on imported goods. Canada and European governments imposing retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. President Trump threatens to further increase tariffs in return. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
Tariffs, a contentious topic between the U.S. and allied nations, looms over meetings with leaders of the Group of Seven, or G7, in Canada. The foreign ministers from the U.S., Canada, UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan kicked off their first of 2 days meetings on Thursday. Mainly, the leaders are in discussions over a potential ceasefire deal in the Russia-Ukraine war and retaliatory tariffs.
In every single meeting, I will raise the issue of tariffs to coordinate our response with the Europeans and to put pressure on the Americans.
Canada is imposing retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods worth $20 billion starting Thursday. The European Union, which some G7 members are on, said it will take similar actions beginning April. It was in response to President Trump imposing 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports. Trump has threatened to impose 200% tariffs on European wine and alcohol if the EU enacts its retaliatory tariffs. A day before going into the G7 meetings, Rubio defended the tariffs as a national security measure.
It's not just against Canada, it's not just against Mexico, it's not just against G7 countries. He's imposed steel and aluminum tariffs now on virtually the entire world. And the reason why is not to punish those countries, it's because he has outlined the need to develop a domestic capability. If you don't have steel and aluminum, you can't build warships, you can't build airplanes. You're not an industrial economy. There are things we have to be able to protect, and there's a lot of unfair trade practices.
Canada is the biggest foreign supplier of steel and aluminum to the U.S. Meanwhile, President Trump has repeatedly called for Canada to become the 51st state, and Rubio recently reaffirming that.
What he said is it should become the 51st state from an economic standpoint. He says if they became the 51st state, we wouldn't have to worry about the border and fentanyl coming across because now we would be able to manage that. He's made an argument that it's their interest to do so. Obviously, the Canadians don't agree, apparently.
The G7 meeting will conclude on Friday, where leaders will hope to make progress on ending the Russia-Ukraine war and some stability over tariffs. Jack Bradley, NTD News.
The Trump administration's tariffs on aluminum and steel have businesses reacting. Duties on imports are a burden for some, but a boost for others. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on a manufacturer in America's heartland who says his business is benefiting from the new trade policies.
Noblesville, Indiana is home to the Luxury Pergola, a family-owned manufacturer of the outdoor structures. President and CEO Scott Elmore says he's very optimistic about the future, but he also remembers the struggle his community experienced when he was a kid.
I grew up in a small manufacturing town in East Central Indiana that was literally hollowed out by globalization. So all the jobs that used to support middle-class families in that town were taken to either Mexico or China.
Elmore says that experience made him want to invest at home.
I did not want to contribute to that anymore. So it was important to us, important to me personally, to create as many jobs as possible here in the States.
Elmore says he obtains his raw materials, particularly aluminum, from American companies. Sourcing domestically exempts him from the potential tariffs that his competitors who source from abroad will face.
In fact, it's helping us because we're made here in the United States. So the only people that hurts are my competitors that are shipping in raw aluminum extrusions from overseas. So now their product is going to cost 25% more than it did before. That means I'm more competitive.
Elmore says Trump's tariffs will protect American industry. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The Trump administration has withdrawn the nomination of Dr. Dave Weldon to head the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. NTD correspondent Jason Blair gives us an update from the nation's capital.
President Trump announced that he is withdrawing his nomination for CDC director. Dr. David Weldon was nominated to be head of the CDC and was scheduled to be heard in the Senate today by the Senate Health, Education, and Labor Committee. However, that committee announced this morning that that hearing was canceled. Senator Collins, who serves on that committee and was expected to most likely vote against Dr. Weldon's nomination, commented on this situation earlier today.
I had reservations about the nominee, but I wanted to give him the opportunity to answer questions in a public forum.
The Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee did go ahead with two other nominees today for the Trump administration, one of those being Dr. Bhattacharya to be NIH director. He did pass through the committee along party lines 12-11 with only GOP support. However, Dr. McCary did get a little bit more bipartisan support, with two Democrats joining Republicans, with 14-9 advancing his nomination. Here are some comments from the chair and ranking member from the hearing in the Senate.
Dr. Bhattacharya and Dr. McCary have the experience and the vision to achieve President Trump's objective of making America healthy again. I support their nominations, urge my colleagues to do the same.
I will be voting against both of these nominations. In my view, we need an NIH director who is prepared to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry. Unfortunately, I do not believe that President Trump's nominee to lead the NIH is that person.
Both of these nominations fall under the Department of Health and Human Services, headed by Secretary Kennedy. And the next and final stop for both of these nominees will be a full Senate vote. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
The Trump administration is asking the Supreme Court to allow birthright citizenship restrictions to take effect, in part while legal challenges play out. The president's order would deny citizenship to those born after February 19th if their parents are in the country illegally. The executive action also forbids government agencies from issuing any document or accepting any state document recognizing citizenship for such children. 3 federal appeals courts have blocked the order nationwide. Roughly 24 states have sued the Trump administration over the executive order. Plaintiffs claim the action violates the Constitution's 14th Amendment guarantee of citizenship to anyone born inside the United States. The Justice Department argues that individual judges lack the power to issue nationwide injunctions. Demonstrators swarmed the lobby of Trump Tower today to denounce the immigration arrest of Columbia University student Mahmoud Khalil. New York City's chief of police said protesters came in through multiple entrances.
Group came in 2 groups in regular civilian attire with their protest gear underneath. Some came in the front, some came in the side.
After warning the protesters to leave the Fifth Avenue building, police began making arrests. The NYPD said most demonstrators were cleared from the lobby without issue.
And I'm very proud to say there were no incidents whatsoever. We did safely, calmly, and we accomplished what we had to do with our Secret Service partners and Trump security.
Khalil is a permanent U.S. resident who is married to an American citizen. He was arrested outside his New York City apartment on Saturday and faces deportation. President Donald Trump has said Khalil's arrest was the first of many to come. The president vowed on social media to deport students who he said engage in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity. Coming up after the break, Donatella Versace is handing over the title of Chief Creative Officer of Versace as she takes on a new role in the fashion firm. Stay tuned.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness. 2025, the 5th NTD International Photography Competition. Capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
At Mathis Home, we understand that your home is a reflection of you. And during our spring style event, we have fresh new looks that are waiting to make your home look and feel great at the lowest prices. And with all the latest styles in bloom, you'll find savings in every department. Whether it's a clean and modern sectional or a rustic and traditional dining table, we have it in stock with fast and free delivery. Come find the look that's right for you at our spring style event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
For today's Business Matters, major packaged food companies are seeking targeted staff tariff exemptions, that is. A group representing Quaker Oats, Pepsi, Floggers, and more have sent a letter to the White House. The Consumer Brands Association is asking the president to exempt ingredients that are not available from U.S. sources. These include coffee, oats, cocoa, spices, tropical fruits, and tin mill steel. They're used for specialty foods and household goods. The group says exemptions for these ingredients will protect manufacturers while supporting the president's effort to lower consumer inflation. The Federal Trade Commission is reversing course after requesting a delay to a trial against Amazon because of budget and staff shortages. In a statement sent to a Seattle judge, FTC attorney Jonathan Cohen says he was wrong about the lack of resources. Cohen had outlined a dire resource situation, describing the effects of cost-cutting measures enacted by President Trump. Now the attorney is saying that the FTC is fully prepared for the case and can meet whatever schedule and deadlines the court sets. Amazon is accused of tricking consumers to enroll in automatically renewing Prime subscriptions. Amazon has denied any wrongdoing. Budget airline Spirit is emerging from bankruptcy as a premier carrier. Spirit has long been known for its no-frills service, but the company is rerouting. This comes after the Florida-based airline filed for bankruptcy protection last year. That same year, Spirit reported a net loss of more than $1 billion. As part of its turnaround strategy, the former budget carrier will shift its focus from price-conscious flyers to more affluent travelers. Its CEO, Ted Christie, said it's redefining low-fare travel with new high-value options. To attract customers, Spirit plans to redesign its loyalty program and partner with other carriers. U.S. wholesale inflation slowed down in February. The Producer Price Index, a wholesale inflation gauge that's being closely watched for tariff-related impacts, showed the pace of price hikes decreased. The PPI was unchanged from January and rose 3.2% for the 12 months ending in February. That marked a slowdown from the prior month. Economists were expecting wholesale-level inflation to cool amid falling energy prices, which turned out to be the case, actually. The United States is entering its fourth year of a near-continuous outbreak of the highly pathogenic avian influenza. Earlier, I discussed the situation where the U.S. continues to kill millions of hens with farmer and journalist Brian Raysinger. He's the author of Land-Rich, Cash-Poor. Take a look. What is the strategy behind the USDA's continued reliance in culling hens?
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me. It's good to be with you. You know, I think that right now the strategy is focused around containment, and we can discuss, whether each individual facility, each individual bird needs to be euthanized, or whether they're quarantining or other things could help with that. So that's a worthy discussion to have. The deeper issue that we have is that the reason bird flu is having such a massive impact on the price of eggs, the availability of eggs, is because of the vulnerability of our supply chain here in America. And that is going to require much deeper work from everybody to be able to address.
So you're saying it is entirely possible to keep egg prices down while limiting the spread of bird flu?
Yeah, it is something that we can do if we are able to evolve our food supply chain. What I mean by that is we've been wiping out farms, family farms in this country at the rate of 45,000 per year for the past century. And what that means is we have fewer and fewer farms, but we also have fewer and fewer small businesses and others who are involved in the purchase and the distribution and the sale of our food products. And so you can have one great big distribution center go down, and that can have a massive outsized impact on the supply of our eggs. And that's what we're experiencing right now. We can and should discuss and debate where and how do we need to euthanize birds, when do we not need to do that. But every time we need to do it, it has a bigger impact, a bigger shockwave sent through our supply chain, because we do have such a vulnerable supply chain that we have in this country.
What's a bigger contributor to prices going up for eggs? Bird flu, or what you're saying about the supply chain?
Yeah, it's a great question. The supply chain issue is the deeper issue, and I think has a bigger impact. The bird flu creates these sudden shocks, but we also saw during COVID that it was not only chicken, but any and all types of food products when our supply chain locked up during COVID, right? So what we're seeing right now during bird flu is kind of like what we saw during the government response to COVID when industries were getting shut down. So it's very, very similar to that. We do need to stop the spread of bird flu, but we also have to understand that there's deeper issues at play.
What has bird flu shown in terms of weaknesses in the supply chain in your view?
Yeah, what it has shown is that there are too few paths for food to get from the farm gate to the dinner table. So what we ought to have, and I think that there's a lot of work being done on this right now, and I know that there's a lot of discussion with the Trump administration about this, there's more work to be done around making sure that our family farms can thrive, so that when people are buying eggs, they're not only getting them through the normal channels you might normally get them through, but they're also able to buy them from local farmers markets, specialty food stores, grocery stores having local eggs that they carry, because many grocers are happy to do that if they know people will buy them. And so the reality is that we should have eggs coming from many places, local, regional, national, and have consumers have options. Instead, we really have what's coming across the national supply chain that has all of these vulnerabilities.
Whether it's supply chain or the bird flu situation, I think what most families really want to see is egg prices coming down. Do you see that happening soon or not?
You know, I do think that there are policy adjustments that are being discussed and some that are being made that can perhaps help in the near term. I think that we're going to continue to see pressure, the same pressure that created the higher price of eggs, continue. However, it's been a long time coming. To your point, bird flu has been going on for a couple of years now. There's been a lot of birds that have already been euthanized prior to the current policies being put in place. So I think we can ease the level that it's increasing, but I think we should be ready for increases to continue, because this was a long time in the making. Bird flu has been rather intense already, and we do have these deeper supply chain issues. So I think we can slow that increase, but we shouldn't be surprised if the price of eggs remains elevated and remains a problem for working families in America.
Brian, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, gas prices are down slightly since January amid fears of a possible recession. According to AAA, the national average price for a gallon of regular gas stands at $3.08. Prices at the pump have been dropping consistently since July, and oil prices have dropped 11% since January. While even a small drop in gas prices is good news, it comes amid concerns about a possible recession. The actual start of a recession would likely send gasoline prices down quickly and sharply. A tit-for-tat continues to unfold over tariffs. President Trump vowed today to impose a 200% levy on all alcohol imported from European Union nations. His threat comes in response to the EU's proposed tariff on American whiskey, which is set for April 1st. The EU is also evaluating potential duties on other U.S. spirits, including gin. Trump wrote on Truth Social today that if the tariff is not removed immediately, the U.S. will shortly place the 200% tariffs on all wines, champagnes, and alcoholic products coming out of France and other EU countries. Trump said the move would be great for the wine and champagne businesses in the U.S. Now, we don't know where the 2036 Olympic Games will be yet, but we do know where we can watch them. The International Olympic Committee and Comcast-owned NBC Universal have signed a media extension. The IOC announced that NBC will pay $3 billion to keep media rights in the U.S. The extension includes the Olympic Winter Games in Salt Lake City, Utah in 2034 and the Olympic Summer Games in 2036. A host city is still being decided on. The deal also includes joint projects like digital advertising. NBC is the single biggest source for revenue for the IOC. The next Summer Olympics will be held in Los Angeles in 2028. Volkswagen is in the hot seat. The United Auto Workers Union has filed unfair labor practice charges against their German-based automaker. This comes as VW is cutting jobs at its Tennessee factory, where workers are negotiating their first ever union contract. UAW said it has notified the Trump administration of what it called unacceptable, anti-union, anti-American conduct. A VW spokesperson said it's cutting production in Tennessee out of caution for dipped demand for EVs. The company said it is offering a voluntary attrition program, including a severance package, retirement options, and benefits. Recession concerns are on the rise. In a note sent to clients Friday, JP Morgan Chase said there's about a 40% chance the U.S. economy will enter a recession before the end of the year. That's a 10% hike from what economists there had forecast in January. Former U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers says there's a 50-50 chance of an economic downturn sometime in 2025. Goldman Sachs is a little more optimistic. Officials there say the nation only has a 20% chance of a recession. Albania has started to turn off TikTok. Users in the country are experiencing difficulties accessing the popular short video app after a one-year government ban took effect today. This was prompted by concerns that social media is fueling youth violence. Some users said they were unable to access the platform via web browsers after midday. Albania's National Authority for Cybersecurity has ordered all internet providers in the country to written submit confirmation that TikTok will be turned off by today. Albania's move follows bans or partial bans in at least 20 other countries. In addition to worries about improper videos, there are security concerns linked to TikTok owner ByteDance and its ties to the Chinese regime. Albania decided to ban TikTok last December, a month after a 14-year-old boy was killed by a classmate following arguments on social media. According to officials at Dollar General, many low-income households in the U.S. are having a harder time staying afloat, and some are living without basic necessities. Dollar General is considered a bellwether on shopping habits. During an earnings call on Thursday, Dollar General CEO said inflation is causing many low and middle-income consumers to buy less. The company also said the Trump administration's tariffs on imports could lead to increased prices. Comedian Hannibal Buress showed off his newly renovated music venue, which used to be a well-known New York City performance space. Take a look.
Comedian Hannibal Buress took the stage to welcome the crowd at the opening of his new venue called Isola in Brooklyn earlier this month.
This is the showroom here.
He has taken over the performance space once known as the Knitting Factory, renamed and remodeled it.
It's a process with tuning the system for the room, but for right now it's bumping, but it's not even, I don't even think it's 50%.
We just got finished. That got put up at 7:54.
And he reflected on his shift from stand-up comedian to music venue manager.
I wasn't driven by stand-up anymore. And then I had to pay bills. So I was like, all right, well, this plus this equals this, so time to go do some shows.
Buress made waves when he was recorded performing a stand-up routine about the long-running sexual assault allegations against comedian Bill Cosby in 2014. Buress told Reuters he wasn't interested in what is sometimes called cancel culture.
No, I think that's all exaggerated. And yeah, my thing didn't stem from cancellation, it just stemmed from having something take on a life and overshadow what I'm trying to do.
Once his primary source of income and creative fulfillment, Buress says he now views stand-up as a means to fund his new venture.
Might still do stand-up in certain spots, but I'll focus on, I'll get more into the music and putting out stuff now, because I have a spot where I can say, oh, we're about to do the release party here, or we can show the music video. It's just an easier place to activate.
A final blow at the end of the catwalk for Donatella Versace. After nearly 3 decades as chief creative officer, she is taking on a new role. Versace has confirmed that the 69-year-old will be transitioning to the newly created chief brand ambassador position. She took over the label from the founder, her late brother, Gianni, who was murdered in 1997. In a statement, she said it has been her greatest honor to carry on his legacy. Versace has named Dario Vitale as the new chief creative officer. Vitale most recently worked at Prada-owned Miu Miu. Prada has been edging closer to buying Versace from its parent company, Capri Holdings. Lisa Vanderpump is taking over a hotel on the Las Vegas Strip. The entrepreneur and reality TV star announced Wednesday she is partnering with Caesars Entertainment to overhaul the Cromwell. That's a boutique hotel located in the center of the Strip. By early next year, it will be turned into the Vanderpump Hotel. The property will remain open while the common areas and guest rooms are renovated with the Bravo Star's signature style. This is Vanderpump's first foray into hotels. It expands her presence on the Strip, which includes several popular restaurants and lounges at other Caesars properties. Vanderpump and her husband, Ken Todd, have decades of experience in the restaurant business. A new Looney Tunes movie is coming out with a talented voice actor who plays multiple iconic characters in the new animated adventure. Here's more.
Nothing can stop me now. I hope that shatterproof glass can withstand the abuse.
Only a duck and 2 pigs can save the world from an alien invasion in The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie.
Situation is under control. There's no way we could screw this up.
Eric Bauza does double duty in the film.
Well, you see, I'm glad you asked this question, Rick. It's a question that I've been dying to talk about. Hey, listen, Daffy, stop hogging the interview. I was a part of this movie too. Hi.
It's a little, when they're literally resting on your shoulders here, it's kind of easy to kind of refer to each of the characters. But I can't continue this interview without crediting and citing, of course, the great Mel Blanc, who was the original voice behind not just these voices, but I like to call them these personalities.
It's a character that has been around since the 1940s, but with the deft hand of the Warner Brothers animation team, we have brought her into the 21st century. So her character is more full, for lack of a better word, more human, more emotional, and a heck of a lot smarter.
You have to act fast, and there's only one person that can do the job. Daffy Duck. Daffy?
Oh, no, not the...
Wall Street ended sharply lower today, and the S&P 500 confirmed it is in fact in a correction after cool inflation data was overshadowed by fears that tariffs could reignite inflation and tip the economy into recession. A broad sell-off sent all three major U.S. indexes tumbling, with losses in tech and tech-related mega-cap shares dragging the Nasdaq down most. S&P 500 closed more than 10% below its February 19th record closing high, confirming that the bellwether index has been in a correction since then. And that's it on Business Matters for today. Coming up after the break, Democratic lawmakers weigh options to oppose the changes happening in the Department of Education. That and more when we return.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I had heard many times that heart disease is the #1 killer. It went in one ear and out the other, frankly. I never had a health issue. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. But a few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. By the time I got to the ER, the doctor decided to give me a CAT scan. He said, "I don't think you understand. You are on the verge of a heart attack." I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I received 2 stents in my arteries, stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. With you by our side, together we'll keep fighting this battle. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. Put yourself on your to-do list. It could be the most important thing you ever do. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did. So please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now. Join me as a monthly donor today and help save even more lives. Thank you.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges. Oh my goodness.
So Ariel, we made this here just for you. It has notes from other people that are here. Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
Thanks for staying with us. A coalition of democratically led states is challenging the Trump administration's sweeping layoffs across the education department. Plaintiffs include 20 states and Washington, D.C., allege the firings amount to an unconstitutional dismantling of an agency created by Congress. According to a federal lawsuit filed in Massachusetts today, they allege the department can no longer function and cannot comply with statutory requirements. The suit alleges the cuts will result in a loss or delay of federal money for public schools and will leave the agency unable to administer college financial aid or enforce civil rights laws at schools, among other disruptions. Trump has repeatedly said he wants the department shut down, arguing that the agency is wasteful. The federal workforce changes enacted by the Trump administration have been one of the main issues discussed at the House Democrats' annual policy retreat. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more on this story.
Just look at the split screen.
People can't afford their rent. They can't afford eggs. And what is Trump doing? He is slashing the Department of Education in half, going after 180,000 teachers whose jobs depend on federal funding.
House Democrats are gathered here in Leesburg, Virginia for the second day of their annual policy retreat, and the government cuts at the Department of Education is one of the main topics of conversations. Democrats do not oppose government reform but disagree with how President Trump is enacting change.
Well, I believe in government reform, and I believe there are a lot of places where we can find inefficiency and we can make government work better for people, and I've pushed for years on that front. But to take a sledgehammer is going to do damage that can't be repaired.
For Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar, whose mom was a teacher, the Education Department is a personal issue.
First of all, it is especially helpful when it comes to student loans. And number two, people in rural areas really depend on the Department of Education for help. And then number three, kids with disabilities. Wait till those parents and those families find out about these cuts.
House Democrats are urging Senate Democrats to reject the House Republican stopgap bill to fund government. If Senate Democrats reject the bill, the government will shut down Friday at midnight.
What we do have is the power to stop a bad bill that will strip programs away from Americans.
During the policy retreat, House Democrats have promised to stand by federal workers who have lost their jobs.
Amid this chaos, Democrats have a clear message. We're fighting for and with working people.
You're going to see that unity in the weeks and the months ahead as we expose and talk about what the House Republican budget does. Our job over the next 21 months is to make sure that voters are hearing this message loud and clear, and we're going to keep repeating it over and over.
It remains to be seen what other actions House Democrats take as they oppose the Trump administration's changes to the federal workforce. Reporting from Leesburg, Virginia, Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Amid a leadership vacuum in the Democratic caucus, what do everyday Americans think of the party's current messaging? NTD Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
What do you think of the Democrats' current messaging, and what do you think their messaging should be going forward?
I mean, definitely their current messaging has lost most of their base. They just got slaughtered in the elections last year, and I think they're probably behind closed doors trying to reinvent themselves.
I'm a Democrat, and I think one of the fundamental parts of our messaging that we have to get back is we always used to be the party of the people. I think we've lost our way there.
I think they have no message right now. They're completely lost, and they're trying to deliver to the people what the people don't want. The majority does rule. The tail does not wag the dog, and listen to your constituents.
And I think the Democrats still have that idea with Head Start programs and with SNAP programs. These are all extremely important for us to keep.
Well, I just think that they need to just let Trump kind of do his thing. He did good the last time he was in. I mean, I lived better.
I mean, here we are. National Park Service folks are being fired. All of these projects are going to stop. I think the Democrats have to stand up and fight this. We can't just let this happen to our country.
First of all, I think that they've got to regroup and find their message, because I think that they're so distorted right now. I think that's why they miserably lost this election.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is launching a podcast, and he's been having conservative people onto his show, and even sometimes meeting them in the middle on certain issues. So what do you think of his move here?
Well, I think it's a sign that he's actually trying to see what the other side has to say.
I think he's pandering to the middle. He's positioning for a presidential run.
So I don't mind them being interviewed, but I'd have to see what policies he's agreeing on to let you know what I think about it.
I mean, I think we need to reach across the aisle. He's not the greatest spokesperson, I think, for the party. I'm a resident of California, so I have some issues with him and some decisions that he made.
I think that's just a desperate attempt to try and find some relatability with the common voter right now. Yeah, he's about to term out, so he's definitely looking at that house down the street.
If he can be a part of to bring the Democrats a little bit closer to center, because to me they're way so left. It's not even funny.
Like the programs I was talking about really have to do with they're all over. Poverty is still an issue no matter what side of the aisle you're on. So it's important to have dialogue on both sides of the aisle.
U.S. officials are in Moscow today to propose a ceasefire in the Ukraine war, but Russian President Vladimir Putin raises concerns with the possible truce. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has the update on Ukraine.
Special envoy to Russia and Ukraine, Steve Witkoff, is in Moscow on Thursday. The U.S. is proposing a 30-day ceasefire in the Ukraine conflict. Kyiv already accepted the proposal earlier this week. On Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin said this about a possible truce.
We agree with the proposals to stop the hostilities, but we proceed from the fact that this ceasefire should be such that it would lead to long-term peace and eliminate the original roots of this crisis.
Putin raised multiple concerns he has with a possible ceasefire. He says Russia is currently advancing on the battlefield, which means a pause at this moment would only help Ukraine to reorganize and deliver more weapons to the front lines. Putin also questions who would enforce the ceasefire, saying the front line is over 1,200 miles long. Also on Thursday, a Kremlin aide raised similar points.
What does a temporary ceasefire give us? It gives us nothing. It only gives the Ukrainians an opportunity to regroup and gain strength.
U.S. officials and President Trump previously said a ceasefire would be the first step to lasting peace. They say it would show the willingness from both sides to stop the fighting. Also that it would give them time to negotiate a permanent end to the conflict. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
Belgium arresting several people at Chinese tech giant Huawei offices there. Authorities say they are suspected of bribing lawmakers in the European Parliament. Belgian federal prosecutors said Thursday that about 100 police officers raided Huawei's offices in Belgium and Portugal. Prosecutors said suspects allegedly tried to influence the European Union's policy in favor of the company's interest. That's by paying EU lawmakers for political statements. Also, prosecutors allege suspects offered lawmakers excessive gifts that included food and travel expenses or regular invitations to soccer games. The European Parliament said it will help Belgium assist the investigation. Washington said Huawei is a Trojan horse for Chinese spying, and the EU has urged its member states to remove Huawei from its telecommunications networks, though not all states have complied with the request. Coming up after the break, over $6 for a dozen eggs. That's the average price in the U.S. How extensively is the bird flu outbreak contributing to this? Can anything be done? We take a closer look at the Data Hub after this.
I didn't ask to lose my mother or to be abused at 5 years old. I didn't ask to be kicked out of my house with nowhere to go. I'm so sorry. I didn't ask for any of this. But I did ask for help, and Covenant House was there. Thanks to their love and support, and to generous people like you, I got what I needed to take control of my life.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. 1 in 10 young adults will experience homelessness this year. Your gift can help reach them when they need it most.
I didn't ask for my parents and my family to disown me. I didn't ask to end up in a homeless shelter. The beauty of it all is that I found Covenant House.
The need is overwhelming, but your monthly support will make sure no young person is ever turned away. Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today. If there's no Covenant House, where would I be today?
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations. Show them they're loved and not alone. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
The bird flu outbreak is ravaging the egg industry. You may have noticed egg prices are sky high. Our data reporter Kevin Hogan is looking into this. Kevin, how many birds have died as a result of the outbreak?
So many birds have perished, either being culled out of their flocks or died directly as a result of the virus. That's 166 million birds that the United States has lost. This could include turkeys, chickens for meat or eggs, snow geese, wild birds, or whether or not these chickens are in your backyard or commercial operations. That's the total number. How many of them are chickens? Well, the United States has lost 130 million chickens that lay eggs. So these are the hens or some of the males that are byproducts, but it's mostly those hens that lay those eggs. So that's part of the reason why you're seeing such sky-high egg prices. We mentioned $6 on average. That could be a lot more in other parts of the country, right? So when you look at the breakdown of the chickens first that have been lost to this virus, the egg layers make up at least more than 80% of those chickens lost. And then when you add in the other birds like turkeys and so on, you're looking at about 3/4 of all the birds that have been lost are those egg-laying chickens. Again, putting a big strain on the supply, making price pressures very high at this point. So that's what you're looking at right here, a timeline of the price of eggs, but going back from about 2019 up to the present day right here. So you can see that has just skyrocketed. It hit a peak at about $8 for a dozen eggs, and this is this grade A white eggs, but it's coming down a little bit. So let's just zoom in on this a little bit too. And first you can see that corresponds directly with this virus. I mean, the blue is the number of birds that have been killed off, as a result, and that's 130 million that it's at right here, coming up from about 50 million for that first wave. So you look back, 2019 to 2022, the price of eggs, you probably remember. I mean, that was just about $1 or maybe just about $2. But then when you start hitting this bird flu outbreak right here in 2022, that's when you see prices start to skyrocket. I mean, you're looking at $5 for a dozen of these. And then you see that the number of birds that died, this is the cumulative total, as that levels off, prices drop relatively quickly right there. So it takes about 6 months or a year. But in about 3 months, those prices were able to come down once those waves started to, not affect the farms anymore, as much more. But then again, when you see those birds starting to die off, that's when prices go up again, right? And when you look further in time, now you go from 2024 to the present day, again, you're talking 50 million up to 130 million of those egg-laying hens dying. That's when prices just start, again, skyrocketing all the way up to 8. There is a little bit of relief in sight because, again, the chickens, the total is leveling off a little bit right now, so we're not in a big wave at the moment, and those prices have started to come down. I mean, that's $1 off. So that could, if that continues, then that could mean that there's a little bit less price pressures. Again, demand for eggs is down because think about it. If it's $6, those almonds start to look really good at that point, but the supply is way down because that's 130 million chickens that lay eggs out of the supply chain. And the United States only had about 300-something million back in 2022 to begin with, right? So the United States Department of Agriculture is doing what they can to try to combat this virus, the bird flu. So they've given about $1 billion for combating it, and 100 million of that is to study the vaccines, how that would impact the flocks and whether or not that's a viable solution. However, the Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's very much opposed to that, saying that if you vaccinate with a leaky vaccine, I'll explain that, you turn those flocks into mutation factories. So a leaky vaccine is one that doesn't get the job done perfectly, and it causes the symptoms to vanish, but those birds are still carrying the virus. So that may be what he means by these mutation factories, in that you're just providing the American public with some eggs that may have some of that virus strain still in them. So they still have to do a lot of studies to find out if that's a viable solution or not. Hopefully something can be done because we want to get those eggs. Back to you.
Thank you, Kevin. A 5,000-year showcase of classical Chinese dance, Shenyun Performing Arts, took the stage at the Johnny Mercer Theater in Savannah, Georgia. Theater goers shared their reflections on the show, which NTD sponsors.
On March 11th and 12th, Shenyun Performing Arts took audience members in Savannah, Georgia, on a journey through ancient China. Shenyun travels with a live orchestra that combines both classical Chinese instruments and Western instruments. Audience members were deeply impressed by the artistry.
It was perfect. It was gorgeous. There was not a single thing out of place. All of the music was, I'm not sure how to really say it, but there's a lot of precision, a lot of song-like characteristics coming out of each instrument.
Being a musician, I love good arrangements. They're very well scored, if that means something to non-musicians. The arrangements are absolutely fantastic, and of course the musicians are top-notch.
I would say it was a beautiful cultural experience with color and dance and acrobatics. It was fabulous.
The ancient Chinese believed their culture and values to be gifts from the divine. Theater goers recognized the importance of Shenyun's efforts in reviving 5,000 years of cultural heritage.
The story was told throughout the performance. You can definitely see there's another side of the story that's not communism, where people are trying to share the story of their faith, what they believe, and a rich part of their heritage as well.
The majority of Chinese history definitely predates communism, and I love the fact that that story is being shared now.
I think all the dancers definitely had such a passion for what they do. It's not just about performance, that they look good and feel good, but it's really about just carrying out the mission through their movements and dances.
You need to come in and experience this. You need to take the time to learn about Chinese culture and what that has meant in our world.
Shenyun will perform at the Des Moines Civic Center in Des Moines, Iowa on March 15th. NTD News, Savannah, Georgia.
And that's it for today. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific.
What has lasted 5,000 years